You've lived long enough to hear the whispers the galaxy was never meant to forget. The first thing you hear is silence. A silence so vast it feels endless, until the faint beat of drums begins to echo from the edge of the stars. Slow, heavy, relentless. You don't know where the sound comes from, but you feel it in your chest, rattling your bones like the heartbeat of something ancient and unstoppable. The air is cold, metallic. You can almost smell smoke drifting on currents that shouldn't exist here, carrying whispers of worlds you've never seen. The whispers tell of warriors in iron masks, of children dragged from burning homes, of fleets that blot out suns. And still, the core is quiet. Marble halls, polished chambers, endless debates. The galaxy's leaders wrap themselves in comfort while fire consumes the rim. You sit among them, you listen, you wait. But inside, something twists, because the war drums are getting louder, and you know they are coming for you too. The shadows stretch across the stars. They wear Beskar. They march without mercy. They carve their names in blood and fire, and no one, not the Senate, not the Jedi, moves to stop them. You feel the weight of every cry for help silenced by hesitation. The fear gnaws at you, not because you doubt their strength, but because you doubt your own. And then, you see him, a mask, but not of Beskar, a voice that cuts through indecision, a presence that makes you believe one Jedi can change the fate of an entire galaxy. His eyes burn, and in them, you see salvation. Or ruin. The drums thunder now, no longer distant. War is no longer rumor. It is here, at your doorstep, demanding blood. You grip your weapon and realize the truth. Once you take that step, you can never return. Because this is not just a war. This is the birth of legends, and legends are written in fire. The sound comes first. Not music, not storm, not the hum of hyperspace engines or the chatter of city streets. No, it is slower, deeper, primal, a rhythm carried on currents of rumor, the faint beat of drums. You hear it long before you understand it, a sound so far away it shouldn't reach you, and yet it finds you. It crawls into your bones as if the galaxy itself is warning you that something vast and terrible has awakened beyond the edge of the maps. You sit in the core, in the safety of civilization. The towers of Coruscant glitter like blades of light piercing the eternal dark. Airspeeder lanes hum, marketplaces roar, and temples echo with chants of serenity. Here, life continues untouched, wrapped in the illusion that peace is unshakable. But you can already smell the smoke of burning worlds, carried on whispers that drift into these halls like ghosts. The first whispers come from traders, cargo haulers with cracked hulls and eyes red from sleepless nights. They tell of raids in the Outer Rim, border colonies left in ruins, fleets of ships painted in iron descending like predators, entire families stolen, cities left hollow, survivors speaking of masked warriors who do not negotiate, who do not leave ransom demands, who only kill and burn until nothing remains. You lean closer, listening. Their voices shake, not because they are merchants exaggerating to drive up prices, but because they have seen it. They have smelled the ash. Their cargo bays still carry the stench of smoke clinging to supplies rescued from shattered outposts. You close your eyes. You can almost see it. Ships tearing through the silence of space like jagged teeth, fire spilling across defenseless skies, screams rising and falling until the void swallows them whole. And you know these are not simple pirates. Pirates steal. Pirates retreat. Pirates know fear. These whispers speak of something else, and something older, something relentless. The name begins to spread, quietly at first, then louder. The Mandalorians. At night, you dream of them, armored figures stepping from flame, their helmets reflecting the fire of burning villages, jetpacks shrieking, blasters screaming, vibroblades slashing through flesh and steel alike. A people bound not by government, not by senate or law, but by creed, by conquest. You dream of the sound of Beskar, iron upon iron, unyielding. The clang echoes in your skull even after you wake, and when you do wake, you find that the whispers have not faded. They've grown louder. The holonet begins to fill with fragmented messages, cut-off transmissions, a colony broadcasting a distress signal only for static to devour the sound halfway through the plea, an outpost reporting strange fleets massing near the Tingle Arm, then silence, always silence. You walk the streets of the core, but you no longer see its beauty. Instead, you see shadows between towers. You see citizens laughing in ignorance, not realizing the storm that is building at the galaxy's edge. You want to scream at them, to tell them that peace is already cracking, that the fire has already begun. But what would they say? What would they do? The Senate dismisses the stories. Exaggerations, frontier paranoia, baseless reports. The words echo in chambers of marble and light, where leaders sit too far from the ashes to smell the smoke. You stand among them, and every word feels like a knife. They do not understand, or perhaps they do not want to, because to understand would mean admitting weakness, admitting fear. And fear is not allowed in the heart of the Republic. Still, you hear more. From refugees packed into docking bays, eyes wide, clutching what little they carried from burning homes. From Republic scouts who return haunted, their reports redacted by superiors who would rather the galaxy not panic. You even hear it in the Jedi Temple. The whispers travel through stone halls and high spires, reaching even the council chambers. You kneel in silence as the masters discuss the raids. Their words are calm, deliberate. They speak of patience, of waiting for the Force to reveal its will. They do not rush, they do not fear, but you feel it in their voices, the hesitation, the uncertainty. Even here, cloaked in serenity, the drums can still be heard. You dream again. This time the dreams are darker. You see whole sectors burning. The air tastes like iron, like blood. You hear children crying in a language you don't understand. Then silence as fire takes them. You hear a chant, low and guttural, repeated by 1,000 voices in perfect rhythm. It grows louder, heavier, until you wake, gasping. The chant does not belong to the Republic. It does not belong to the Jedi. It belongs to warriors who have no word for surrender. The whispers turn to truths. Outposts fall, colonies vanish. Star systems go dark, their signals extinguished. Survivors speak of armored leaders who drive their forces not with fear, but with honor. An honor twisted into endless conquest. Mandalorian neo-crusaders, they call them. A people remade by war, carrying the ancient dream of conquest that once brought the galaxy itself to its knees. And now, they rise again. You feel the weight of it pressing down on you, the inevitability. Because if they are not stopped, if their fire is not quenched at the edges of the rim, then the blaze will spread. It will reach the mid-rim. It will reach the core. And no marble tower, no Senate speech, no Jedi mantra will stop it. You know this. You feel this, and yet, no one moves. The fear becomes paranoia. You hear phantom sounds in the night, jetpacks roaring outside your window, blasters firing in distant alleys. You wake drenched in sweat, hand gripping your weapon, only to find silence staring back at you. Still, you cannot shake the feeling that the whispers are no longer just stories from afar, that somewhere, somehow, they are already here. Then comes the final spark, a transmission, cut short but clear, a burning world, a final scream. And in the background, through smoke, through static, you see them, the helmets, the masks, the Beskar gleaming red against firelight. And for the first time, you no longer hear whispers. You hear the war drums clearly. They are not faint. They are not distant. They are here. And as the drums thunder in your chest, you realize the truth. The galaxy is not ready. The Republic is not ready. The Jedi are not ready. But the Mandalorians are. And their war has already begun. You close your eyes, but the sound does not leave you. The drums do not fade. They beat louder, louder, until you understand. You are no longer living in whispers. You are living at the edge of a storm. And when it breaks, nothing will ever be the same again. The first thing that strikes you is the sound. Not whispers this time, not rumors carried by frightened traders or fractured signals. No, this is the sound of reality tearing through silence. The roar of engines, the piercing scream of jetpacks cutting through air, the thunder of boots slamming against steel decks as soldiers descend in perfect rhythm. And then the smell follows, acrid, metallic. The stench of fire and ozone fills your lungs, as if the atmosphere itself has been poisoned. Smoke curls against your skin, biting your eyes, searing your throat. You stumble through the streets of a frontier colony as shadows fall across the sky. Not clouds, ships, dark shapes slicing through atmosphere like knives. Dropships open their jaws and spill warriors into the chaos below. And that's when you see them, the Mandalorians. At first, it doesn't feel real. Ironclad figures step from fire like creatures of myth. They are not pirates, not mercenaries. They move with precision, as if every step is a ritual, every kill a prayer. Armor gleams in shades of crimson, bronze, and steel, polished Beskar forged from centuries of war. Their helmets hide their faces, but not their intent. The T-shaped visor stares through you, cold, unyielding, merciless. The clang of Beskar is deafening. Vibroblades clash against durasteel. Shields shatter. Walls crumble beneath the weight of their assault. They are more than soldiers. They are predators, and the battlefield is their hunt. You watch as one Mandalorian ignites his jetpack, soaring above the carnage. His silhouette cuts across the burning sky before he dives, unleashing a torrent of blaster fire into civilians fleeing below. His laughter, low, guttural, crackles through his helmet's comms, distorted, inhuman. Your heart pounds, your breath catches. Fear crawls up your spine, because in that moment, you understand. This is not a raid. This is not chaos. This is conquest. The colony resists. Of course it does. Militia fighters scramble into streets, blasters clutched in shaking hands. A handful of Republic soldiers, posted here more for formality than defense, form a line, shouting orders drowned out by the storm. You see bravery, you see desperation, and you see how little it matters. The Mandalorians descend like a tide. Their formation is flawless. Shields interlock. Rifles pulse in disciplined bursts. Their war cries echo against steel walls, vibrating in your chest like thunder. Every movement feels rehearsed, as though they have fought this exact battle 100 times before. You hear the clang of Beskar against blaster fire, sparks flying as bolts deflect harmlessly off armor that should not exist in such numbers. Beskar, the legendary iron of Mandalore, unbreakable, unyielding, once rare, now worn like second skin by entire battalions. You fire. You fight, you scream, but your efforts feel like striking against a mountain. And then, for the first time, you see what lies beneath the mask. Not a face, not flesh, but devotion. One of them corners a militia captain. The captain surrenders, dropping his weapon, begging for mercy. For a moment, the Mandalorian pauses, his head tilting, visor reflecting the captain's trembling form. Then, without hesitation, he strikes. The vibroblade pierces clean through. No anger, no cruelty, just ritual, a sacrifice to the creed. Around you, others fall, not because they are weak, but because they are not Mandalorian. And to the Mandalorian, nothing else matters. The air grows hotter. Smoke thickens. The ground trembles with the weight of firepower unleashed. You see children crying, mothers clutching them as they run toward ships that will never leave the ground. You see men standing against walls, hands raised, cut down anyway. Every scream is drowned by the roar of jetpacks and the steady rhythm of boots marching forward. You feel despair claw at you. You realize this colony was never meant to survive. This is a message, a declaration. The Mandalorians are back, and they want the galaxy to remember their name. In the chaos, your eyes find something stranger still. At the center of their formation, towering above the others, a warrior carries a banner. It is not Republic, not Sith, not Jedi. It is Mandalorian, a sigil painted in crimson and black, the skull of a beast long extinct but never forgotten. The mythosaur, the ancient symbol of Mandalore. It flutters in smoke and fire as if mocking you. You feel the weight of history pressing down on you. The stories you once thought were myths rising from the ashes. These are not ghosts. These are not legends. They are flesh and steel and fire, and they are standing in front of you now. The battle ends quickly. The militia is crushed. The Republic soldiers are slaughtered. The colony burns. You crawl through wreckage, your body shaking, lungs screaming for clean air. The screams around you have faded. Silence falls again, but not the same silence you once knew. This silence is heavy, final, absolute. And in that silence, you see them standing tall, their visors gleaming red in the glow of the fires. They do not loot, they do not celebrate. They simply stand, as though victory was never in doubt. For them, it never was. The Mandalorians leave nothing behind but ash. They march back into their ships, their boots striking in rhythm, the same rhythm you heard in whispers, the same Drew. Misses that haunted your dreams. The doors seal shut, engines roar, and the shadows lift from the colony. But the damage is done. The colony lies in ruins. Bodies litter the streets. Smoke drifts into the sky, carrying with it the memory of every scream, every plea, every life extinguished in fire. You stagger to your feet, barely breathing, staring into the dark where their ships vanished. And in the glow of dying flames, you whisper the word to yourself for the first time, Mandalorians. You thought you were prepared. You thought you understood the stories. But nothing in hollow books, nothing in Jedi lessons, nothing in Senate debates could prepare you for the truth. The whispers are no longer whispers. They have faces now, masks of Beskar, eyes of fire, voices chanting in unison as they carve their creed into the flesh of the galaxy. And you realize, with a sinking dread, that this is only the beginning. Because if one colony falls this easily, how many more will follow? How long until the core itself feels the shadow of Beskar masks falling over its towers? The drums are no longer distant. They are beating inside your chest, and you know this war is inevitable. The first thing you hear is laughter. Not the laughter of joy, not the laughter of celebration. It is laughter twisted into politics. Dry, hollow chuckles echoing through marble halls while the galaxy burns. You sit in the Senate chamber. Thousands of pods float in a grand arena, a cathedral of light and stone. Voices rise and clash like weapons, each word sharper than the last. Senators argue about tariffs, about jurisdiction, about procedure. Their robes are polished, their words carefully measured, their faces untouched by the smoke and blood consuming the rim. And you hate them for it. Because outside these walls, the galaxy is screaming. You've heard the cries. You've seen the refugees flood into docking bays, clutching scraps of home that no longer exists. You've smelled the charred remains of burned-out transports, their hulls cracked from Mandalorian raids. But here, it is silence wrapped in ceremony. One senator raises his voice. "We cannot commit fleets without evidence." Another interrupts. "We must confirm whether these attacks are isolated incidents." A third dismisses them entirely. The outer rim exaggerates. They always exaggerate. The core cannot be dragged into every frontier skirmish. Their words are daggers. Their laughter is poison. You grip the edge of your seat until your knuckles ache, because you know these are not exaggerations. They are not rumors. They are not isolated incidents. They are death, real, immediate, endless. And still, they speak as though lives can be debated away like numbers on a ledger. A transmission flickers to life in the center of the chamber. A refugee, patched in from a ruined outpost. His voice trembles. His clothes are torn, ash smeared across his face. He begs, pleads, "Help us, please. They are coming back. We can't hold them. My children." Static cuts him off. The chamber falls silent for a moment. A moment hope flickers in your chest. Maybe now they'll understand. Maybe now action will come. Then the voices return, cold, detached, bureaucratic. Unverified testimony. Could be propaganda. Send it to committee review, and the moment dies. The silence that follows is louder than any scream. You feel it pressing down on you, heavy and suffocating. The silence of a republic too afraid to fight, too entangled in politics to act. It is a silence that chains the galaxy, and you are forced to watch as the chains tighten. You walk the halls of Coruscant after the session. The city world glitters. Towers rise into the clouds. Neon lights flood the sky lanes. Laughter spills from cantinas. To the core, life continues untouched, as though war is just a myth told in shadowed corners. But you can't escape what you've seen. Every light reminds you of a fire burning on some distant colony. Every laugh echoes against the cries of refugees. Every polished surface reflects not your face, but the visors of Beskar masks you can't forget. The core sleeps, the rim burns, and the Republic looks away. Days pass, then weeks. The Senate drags its feet, drowning in amendments, debates, commissions. While they argue, the Mandalorians expand. Raids become invasions. Invasions become occupations. Entire sectors vanish from the Republic's maps. You see it in numbers. Shipments cut off, trade routes severed, communications lost. But numbers cannot show the truth. Numbers cannot bleed. Numbers cannot scream. Only people can. And you have seen enough people screaming to know the truth the Senate denies. The Mandalorian shadow is spreading. One night, you sit alone in the archives, replaying intercepted transmissions. A Republic scout's voice, panicked, shouting coordinates before static swallows him. A family's distress beacon, cut short by an explosion. The last log of a militia officer, whispering a prayer as the enemy breaches the door. Each one ends the same way. Silence. And that silence follows you into sleep. You dream of the chamber again. Senators arguing, voices overlapping until they blur into meaningless noise. Their words twist and tangle, forming chains that wrap around your throat. You try to shout, but the chains tighten, silencing you. Across the chamber, you see Mandalorians standing in the shadows, watching, waiting, and then you wake, drenched in sweat, the echo of laughter still ringing in your ears. The worst part is not the inaction. The worst part is the denial. When you confront them, they dismiss you. The Republic cannot be baited into every border dispute. When you show them transmissions, they question authenticity. When you speak of refugees, they speak of stability. Every word is another chain. Every excuse another lock. And you realize, this is not ignorance. This is cowardice. One afternoon, as the Senate debates tariffs, you glance upward. Above you, the ceiling of the chamber glows with soft light, meant to symbolize transparency and unity. But you no longer see light. You see cracks. Cracks where the weight of war will break through. You imagine fire pouring into this very chamber. You imagine armored boots marching across marble floors. You imagine senators screaming as Beskar blades silence their debates forever. And you wonder, would that be what it takes for them to finally listen? The fear seeps deeper. You begin to look at people differently. Every senator, every citizen. Their comfort disgusts you. Their blindness enrages you. You hear laughter in the streets and you feel like striking it down. Because how can they laugh when the rim is dying? You are tired. Tired of excuses. Tired of silence. Tired of pretending this war is not already here. The outer rim screams for salvation, and Coruscant looks away. One night, a refugee finds you in the lower levels. His hands shake as he presses a charm into your palm. A small trinket, cracked and scorched. "This was my daughter's," he whispers, voice breaking. "She didn't make it. Maybe you can make sure someone remembers." He walks away before you can answer. You stare at the charm, and for the first time you feel despair settle into your bones. Because memory is all that remains for too many now. And you realize the truth. No one is coming. You return to the chamber one final time. The debates rage as they always do. Voices rise, laughter echoes, amendments are passed, business as usual. But you no longer hear their words. You only hear silence. Because silence has weight now. Silence has blood on it. Silence is death. And as you sit there, chains tightening around the galaxy, you understand. If the Republic will not act, someone else will. The first thing you feel is the weight of silence. It hangs heavy in the air of the Jedi Council chamber. High above the city world of Coruscant, the temple spires pierce the sky, their shadows stretching across endless sky lanes. Within these walls, the galaxy is meant to find clarity, wisdom, and guidance. But all you find is silence. You kneel on the polished floor, the faint hum of the city muffled by ancient stone and glass. Sunlight filters through the tall windows, painting long shadows across the chamber where 12 masters sit in their great circle. Their faces are calm, their voices steady, but beneath the surface you feel the currents of unease, because the cries of the outer rim have reached even here. You've heard them yourself. Broken transmissions, refugees begging for aid, scouts cut down in the void, worlds reduced to ashes under the Mandalorian advance. You carry those voices in your chest, every scream seared into memory. And now, as you kneel, you hear them again in the echoes of this chamber, but the masters do not hear them as you do. Master Vrook speaks first, his voice sharp. "We must not be rash. The Force will guide us. To act without patience is to fall into chaos." Another master counters, softer but no less firm. "We are peacekeepers, not soldiers. The Jedi must not become an army." A third speaks, their voice heavy with age. "The Mandalorians have risen before, and like before, they will fade. We must trust in time." Their words cut you like blades. Every syllable is polished with calm. But to you it feels like indifference. Worlds are burning, children are dying, and they speak of waiting. Your anger stirs, not the wild fury of rage. Something deeper, a slow burning ember inside you that will not die. The Force hums around you, whispering, feeding the anger you've tried to bury. You clench your fists, nails digging into your palms. Bika. Use every word spoken feels like betrayal. You lift your eyes and see them. The Masters, serene and unflinching, sitting above you like statues carved from stone. They do not see what you've seen. They have not walked among the ruins, felt the smoke choke their lungs, heard the Mandalorian war chants rising over the screams of the innocent. How can they speak of patience when the galaxy is drowning in fire? You want to shout, to rise to your feet and demand action. Instead, you hear your own voice, steady but shaking beneath the weight of everything you've carried. If we wait, millions more will die. Entire sectors are already gone. The Mandalorians do not fade, they grow stronger. The chamber falls silent. For a moment, you believe you've broken through. But then, Master Vandar leans forward, his small form framed in light. And yet, if we move too quickly, if we fight without clarity, we risk repeating the wars of old, wars that nearly destroyed the Order. Your chest tightens. His words are not cruel, but they cut deep, because he is right, in a way. The Jedi know too well the dangers of becoming weapons. But knowing does not ease the pain of waiting. The session drags on. Hours of debate, words circling like birds of prey, never landing, never striking. You kneel in silence, but your mind is elsewhere. You see flashes of memory, the colony reduced to ash, the refugees pressing charms into your hand, the mythosaur sigil burning against smoke. You feel the ground tremble beneath the boots of warriors in Beskar. You hear the laughter of senators who dismissed the cries. And now, you hear the voices of the Masters telling you to bury it all. Patience, restraint, calm. But you can't bury the screams. At last, the council adjourns. You rise to your feet, bowing as tradition demands. Your knees ache. Your throat burns with words left unsaid. You turn and leave the chamber, the great doors sealing behind you with a final, echoing thud. The sound follows you down the corridors. Heavy, final. The temple halls are quiet, filled with the hum of meditation, the whisper of Padawans reciting lessons, the distant clang of training sabers. It should bring peace. It should remind you of why you swore to this life. Instead, it feels suffocating, because you know what lies beyond these walls. The outer rim is burning. The cries of the helpless echo across the stars, and the Order, your family, has chosen silence. You walk faster, the silence pressing down on you like chains. That night, you stand on one of the temple balconies, staring out at the endless city. Coruscant glows in neon and starlight, alive and oblivious. The Senate sleeps, the citizens laugh, the Masters meditate, but you cannot sleep. You cannot laugh, you cannot find peace. The whispers come again, not whispers of traitors this time, whispers inside you. The Force itself seems to call, but it is not calm. It is not serenity, it is restless, urgent, demanding. You grip the railing until your hands ache. The wind cuts across your face. Somewhere in the distance you hear the faint toll of bells, a reminder of tradition and patience. But beneath it, you swear you hear the drums again. War drums. The anger inside you swells. Not just anger at the Mandalorians. Anger at the Senate. Anger at the Council. Anger at yourself for doing nothing while others die. You tell yourself this anger is wrong, that it leads to darkness, that it will destroy you if you let it. But it feels real. It feels alive. And more than anything, it feels necessary. You close your eyes, and for a moment you imagine it, igniting your saber, leading fleets into battle, cutting through the Mandalorian tide. You see yourself standing on burning worlds, not as a helpless witness, but as salvation. Then you open your eyes, and the city stretches before you, vast and uncaring. The Council will not act, the Senate will not act, and deep down, you know the truth. Someone must. The first thing you hear is his voice, not the cold, measured tones of the council, not the hollow rhetoric of senators. This voice is alive, sharp, certain. It cuts through hesitation like a blade through silk. You stand among the gathering of Jedi in one of the temple's great halls. Light filters through stained glass, painting the floor in shifting mosaics of blue and gold. Apprentices whisper to one another. Knights pace with furrowed brows. Even masters linger at the edges. The council has spoken of patience, of restraint, of waiting. But outside these walls, the war grows, and whispers of rebellion against silence have begun to spread. And at the center of it all, he rises, Revan. At first glance, he does not look like a savior. He is not draped in elaborate robes or crowned with rank. His presence is not gilded with authority. But when he speaks, every head turns. When he moves, every eye follows. His hair is dark, framing sharp features lit by the glow of stained glass. His robes are simple, worn from long hours in study and battle alike. But it is not his appearance that holds you. It is his eyes, piercing, brilliant, unyielding. They lock onto you across the hall as if you are the only one here. And in them, you see conviction so absolute it burns. He speaks of the Rim, of burning colonies, of refugees abandoned, of cries silenced by Senate laughter and council patience. His words echo through the hall, weaving truth into every syllable. The Mandalorians will not wait for us to find our balance. They will not pause so that we may meditate. Every world we hesitate to defend is a world already burning. A murmur ripples through the room. You feel it inside you too. That flicker of anger, of urgency, finally given shape. You remember the screams, the smoke, the weight of silence pressing down on you in the council chamber. His words pierce into that wound like fire. Every moment we wait, we betray the very people we swore to protect. The masters shift uneasily. Some watch with narrowed eyes, measuring him. Others whisper, warning of danger, of passion, of the dark side hidden beneath such certainty. But you don't hear them. You hear him. Revan speaks not like a politician, not like a philosopher. He speaks like someone who has seen. His voice is the storm you have felt building, the truth you could not say aloud. We are Jedi. We are defenders. If the Council will not act, then we must. If the Senate will not fight, then we will, because if we do not, there will be nothing left to protect. The words strike you like a saber, clean, final, true. You feel your breath catch. Your chest tightens, your heart pounds in rhythm with his voice, and when his eyes find yours again, you feel exposed, seen, because in his gaze, he does not see hesitation, he does not see doubt, he sees what you try to bury, the anger, the fear, the fire, and for the first time, you do not feel ashamed of it. For the first time, you believe it is not weakness, it is strength. The room erupts. Some Jedi rise in support, voices ringing out, calling for action. Others protest, warning of danger, of repeating the mistakes of old. The air is electric, alive with conflict, more raw than any battle you've fought. But Revan does not flinch. He stands at the center of the storm, calm yet burning, his voice carrying above all others. They call it patience. I call it abandonment. They call it restraint. I call it cowardice. If we are not willing to bleed for the galaxy, then what is the purpose of our order? Every word slams against the silence you've carried for weeks, the silence of senators, the silence of masters, the silence of yourself, kneeling, obeying, waiting while worlds died. And suddenly, that silence shatters. You step forward. Your voice is not loud, but it does not need to be. He's right. The hall falls quiet for a moment. Dozens of eyes turn toward you. The weight of judgment presses down. But for once, you do not care, because you remember the colonies burning. You remember the refugees clutching charms of the dead. You remember the laughter in the Senate, the chains of silence in the council chamber. And you remember your own anger, swelling with nowhere to go, until now. Revan's eyes meet yours again. He doesn't smile. He doesn't nod. He doesn't need to. Because in that moment you understand, you are not alone. The meeting disperses, but the storm it ignited does not fade. Whispers follow you down the temple halls. Some whisper of betrayal. Others whisper of salvation. But all whisper of Revan. You walk in silence, your mind a battlefield. The code tells you patience is strength. The council tells you restraint is wisdom. But the galaxy tells you something else. The galaxy is screaming for help, and only one voice is answering. That night, you dream, not of fire, not of silence, but of eyes, piercing, unyielding, filled with conviction that borders on destiny. You dream of leading fleets into battle, Revan at the front, his saber igniting the darkness. You dream of worlds saved, of Mandalorian masks shattered, of victory carved from fire. But the dream twists. The same eyes stare back at you, burning brighter, fiercer, until the light blinds you. And in the blinding fire, you cannot tell if you are looking at a savior or something else. You wake breathless, heart pounding, the image of those eyes seared into your mind. The next day, you walk the pull corridors again. The whispers are louder now, knights debating in corners, apprentices sneaking glances, even masters speaking in hushed tones. The name spreads through the halls like wildfire. Revan. Some speak it with reverence, others with fear, but none can ignore it, and you cannot escape it. His voice lingers in your ears. His eyes burn in your mind. His conviction pulses in your chest. You stand again on the balcony overlooking Coruscant. The city glitters beneath you, alive, oblivious, endless. For weeks, you felt chained, trapped in silence, drowning in patience. But now, the silence is broken. Now, there is a voice, a leader, a destiny. And as you stare into the horizon, you realize the war is no longer distant. It is calling to you. And through Revan's eyes, you see the truth. This is not hesitation. This is not debate. This is destiny. The first thing you hear is the hum, a faint vibration, low and steady, resonating through your hand as you grip the hilt of your lightsaber. It's not ignited, not yet, but the weight of it is enough to remind you of the decision that hangs in the air. The temple is no longer silent. Whispers crawl through every corridor, students arguing in hushed tones, knights pacing, torn between loyalty and conviction. Masters standing at doorways, watching their order fracture. You hear it in the dining halls, in the sparring arenas, in the libraries, everywhere. A storm building inside the Jedi temple itself. The council says patience, restraint. Revan says action, war, salvation. And now, you must decide. You walk through the temple at night, its halls lit only by the pale glow of Coruscant's skyline, bleeding through tall windows. Statues of ancient Jedi loom above you, carved in stone, watching. Their faces are cold, their eyes unblinking. You feel judged with every step, but you cannot stop walking, because everywhere you turn, the Force whispers. It doesn't whisper peace anymore, it whispers choice. The first confrontation comes in the training halls. Two knights stand face to face, sabers ignited, their blue and green blades casting violent shadows across the walls. Their voices are loud, echoing against the durasteel floors. One shouts loyalty to the council, demanding patience. The other screams that patience is betrayal, that Revan is the only hope for the galaxy. Their blades clash, sparks fly, and in that clash you see the order itself breaking. Others rush to separate them, but the damage is done. Eyes are opened, sides are drawn, the Jedi are splitting. You feel it pressing on you every moment. The council summons you, their voices calm but stern. The code must not be broken. Anger leads to the dark side. Revan's path is reckless. They speak of history, of ancient wars that nearly destroyed the Jedi. They remind you that your duty is not to choose sides, but to serve the Force. Then you hear Revan's voice again, not here, but in memory. His words echo, alive, undeniable. If we do not fight, then what is the purpose of our order? And the anger rises in you once more. The temple itself feels divided now. Some halls are crowded with Jedi debating late into the night, voices trembling with passion. Others are abandoned, dark and cold, as though the weight of history itself has abandoned them. You walk through both, carrying the burden of choice like a chain across your shoulders. And the whispers of the Force grow louder. They do not guide you, they tempt you. Warning and promise, tangled together. One evening you find yourself in the archives. Holocrons glow faintly in the darkness, ancient voices whispering fragments of forgotten wars. You reach out, your hand brushing the cold surface of a cube older than the Republic itself. The voice of a long-dead Jedi fills your mind. There will come a time when the Order must choose between silence and survival. You pull your hand back, breath sharp. The words strike too close, too deep. It feels like prophecy. Outside, Revan gathers followers. You hear of secret meetings in shadowed halls, of Jedi Knights pledging their sabers to him. You hear of ships prepared in hidden hangars, of fleets waiting beyond the core for someone bold enough to lead them. And you know the council knows, but they do nothing. They sit in silence, meditating. They're calm like stone while cracks widen all around them. The choice comes sooner than you expect. A summons in the night, a message whispered through the halls. You follow, steps echoing, heart pounding, until you find yourself in a chamber lit by the glow of a single torch. He is there, Revan. His hood shadows his face, but his eyes burn in the darkness, sharp and unyielding. He looks at you, not as a student, not as a subordinate, but as an equal. You've seen what the council refuses to. You've heard the cries they ignore. You know the truth. His voice is calm, convincing, alive with fire. Come with me. Help me fight. Together we can stop the Mandalorians. Together we can save the galaxy. The Force surges inside you. It whispers temptation. It whispers warning, both at once, and your hand tightens around your saber. Images flash in your mind. You see the Council, sitting in silence as worlds burn. You see the Senate, laughing as refugees beg for aid. You see Mandalorians in Beskar, their visors gleaming red against firelight. You see the dead, the children, the endless tide of destruction. And then you see Revan's eyes, burning, conviction, destiny. Your breath quickens. If you stay with the council, you keep your vows. You remain bound to tradition, to patience, to silence. But more worlds will fall. More people will die. If you follow Revan, you break your vows. You betray the council, but you fight. You act. You do something. And whichever path you choose, the Force whispers the same truth. Your soul will never be clean again. The chamber is silent. You feel the hum of your saber vibrating in your hand, begging to ignite, to cut through the chains of indecision. The air is heavy. Your heart pounds like a war drum, and finally, you speak. Your voice is low, steady, final. I've made my choice. The words fall into the silence like stone into water, rippling outward, sealing your fate. The Force shudders around you. The galaxy shifts. There is no going back. Whichever side you have chosen, Council or Revan, you know the truth. The order is broken, the war has begun, and your soul will bear this choice forever. The first thing that hits you is the taste. Metal, hot and bitter, like you've put your tongue to a live wire. It coats the back of your throat, crawls up your nose, sits behind your eyes. Then the sound arrives. Late, like thunder following lightning, an avalanche of blaster fire, the bone-deep thud of artillery, the insect whine of incoming shells that rip the air and hammer the ground a heartbeat later. Sand leaps, rock splinters, men scream. You are not in a temple anymore. You are not a student anymore. You are a blade. The drop ramp slams down and heat rolls in. A wall of furnace air mixed with burned insulation and charred meat. The world beyond the troop transport is a smear of orange sky and black smoke, the horizon broken by the jagged ribs of ruined structures and the crawling silhouettes of walkers shouldering forward. Go! Someone yells, maybe your commander, maybe your own voice. And your boots hit ground that trembles like a living thing. The first bolt that passes your face leaves a wake of ozone sharp enough to sting. Instinct moves you. Your saber erupts in your hand with a breath-long hiss, blue fire cutting the haze, and you swat a bolt aside without thinking. Another follows. Two more. You step, pivot, let training become reflex. The world narrows to a tunnel of angles and timing, the rhythm of deflect and advance. Deflect and advance. A dance you've practiced 1,000 times with harmless bolts and laughing partners. Out here, nothing is harmless. No one is laughing. Across the killing field, the Mandalorians advance in staggered ranks, shields overlapping, rifles braced. Their chant rolls in waves, syllables you don't understand pounded into your bones by the unity of 1,000 voices. It isn't rage, it's ritual. It's the sound of a creed being hammered against the anvil of your fate. Above them, jetpack troopers carve hard white arcs through the smell. Okay, dropping like iron meteors into trenches where the world goes red and stays red. Line 2, forward, keep the heavies covered. A Republic sergeant shoulders past you, his pauldron scored, his eyes already old. You move with the line, boots slipping in ash. A cannon to your right coughs and vomits bright spears into the enemy's shield wall. To your left, a medic drags a man by the harness, half his helmet melted into his face. You don't look long, you can't. The mind saves itself by shrinking. A rocket streaks low. You feel it before you see it, the suction of air gone wrong. Then you are on your back, hearing your own breath like you're underwater. The sky tilts. The ramp of your transport is a burning tooth. Your ears ring, two tones beating out of sync. When you push up, your hands tremble and grit sticks to your palms. You taste more metal. You spit, and the spit is red. Jedi, with me. The voice cuts clean. You turn. He's young and massive, jaw like a battering ram, grin too bright for this world. Malak. He's wreathed in dust and confidence, swinging his saber like it weighs nothing, laughter carrying over the artillery like a dare to the universe. You fall into step without remembering choosing it. The ground bucks, the sky screams. You run. You vault a berm into a trench and land thigh deep in slurry. Shapes surge up, iron masks gleaming, too close to block. Too close to think. You move on instinct. Your saber draws a line where a throat used to be. A gauntlet rockets toward your face. You catch the wrist, twist, feel the armor pop, and the man inside it crumple. A knee drives for your ribs. You meet it with your boot. Stumble, recover, slash. The clang of Beskar rings in your bones. Sparks fly like fireflies trapped in a cyclone. You strike again and again, blade biting, blade sliding, blade finally finding a seam. Heat rolls off you. Your robe is a wet way. Your lungs burn. You do not feel fear in this moment. There's no room for it. Only the work. The work is killing. By the time you crawl out of the trench, your hands won't stop shaking. You tell yourself it's the weight of the weapon. You tell yourself it's the adrenaline. But when you look down, you see the truth. Your fingers are coated to the knuckle in black ash and darker blood. Your saber hums, eager, as if it likes this. On the ridge! Someone shouts. You follow the pointing hand. A Mandalorian heavy emplacement blooms to life. Triple barrels barking, sawing men in half mid-sprint. You don't think. You run. Blaster bolts ricochet at your feet like angry insects. Your breath becomes the whole world. Up the shattered steps, over a body that isn't all there, around a fallen mast that still hisses where it burned through. A jetpack's shriek strafes behind you. Heat licks your back. You dive beneath a pipe and come up inside the gun's blind angle. 3 armored shapes turn too late. You are a storm. One goes down with a blade through the cuts of his visor. The second you shove back into the weapon's cycling gears, the grinding shriek punching through the battle's roar. The third brings a knife and a prayer, and you give him silence. You slap the weapon's capacitors free. The gun coughs, chokes, dies. The ridge opens. Republic armor lurches forward with a cheer too thin to be real. In the lull, you hear it, your own heart. It's not steady. It stutters, sprints, refuses to come back to a rhythm that makes sense. You look out over the field you're allegedly winning and can't tell left from right. Fires, smoke, the skeleton of a comms tower. A squad of Mandalorians pulling a forced retreat like it's a drill. They don't panic. They don't look back. They never look back. Hold! Malak again, closer this time, voice hooked into your spine, dragging you back into the shape of a soldier. Line on me! Push the center! He grins a killer's grin, bright, reckless, beautiful, and for a terrible tsa. The moment you understand him, the purity of a line with no questions, the answer that looks like action, the serenity of violence. You push. The battlefield contracts around the choke, a broken boulevard leading to a plaza that used to be a market if the scorched awnings and melted vendor rails mean anything. Civilians are gone or already ghosts. The Mandalorians own the square, shields in a crescent, heavy rifles braced on the lip of a toppled fountain. A banner snaps above them, blood red, skull stark against the smoke, and the chant comes back, low and sure, louder with every step you take. They want you to hear it. The first charge fails. Of course it does. Men hit the open and vanish like lines erased by a cruel hand. A tank tries to muscle through and catches a shaped charge that flips it like a child's toy. The second charge doesn't happen because no one left alive is foolish enough to order it. You breathe. You listen. Under the roar there's a pattern. The spool-up whine of the heavies, the beat between volleys, the sharp punctuation of jetpack landings behind the line. Timing is a language. You can speak it. On my mark! You call to the handful near you. Troopers, burned, bleeding, not dead, lift their heads. Stagger advance on volleys. 2 strides and down. Shields up. I'll draw. Draw what? A corporal asks. Voice shredded. Fire. You step into the open and ignite your saber high. It's a stupid idea if you plan to live. It's a decent idea if you plan to win. Light is a magnet for attention, and the heavies oblige. Bolts bark. The air turns to glass. You meet the storm and send it elsewhere. There is no elegance in it, only economy. You shave millimeters off death, push heat off your skin, give your life one breath, then another. On the beat between volleys, your squad surges to the fountain's fallen lip. 2 strides, down, 2 strides, down. Shields blooming like pale flowers in a garden of shrapnel. The third beat is yours. You run the last stretch. muscles tearing, and dive into the crease of their line. For a heartbeat nobody fires, friend or foe, because you are in the space bullets want to be. Then, the world explodes. You go under a rifle swing, cut the power coupling with a stroke that feels like pulling thread, spin, take a knee, and carve the ankle joint of a shield bearer so clean his body doesn't know it's falling until the ground tells it so. Your squad floods the gap. The crescent buckles. A Mandalorian captain meets you there, cape scorched, visor black. He moves like a lesson, efficient, relentless, inevitable. Your blades meet, and the clang is a church bell for wolves. He drives you back with simple physics and good choices. You give ground. He takes it. He feints low, rockets high, drops behind you on a blast of air that tastes like copper. You roll. He misses your spine by a prayer's width, and your counter-cut kisses the seam under his arm. Sparks. Not enough. He barks something in his language. Around you, the chant surges. For a dizzy moment you feel very small, a single breath inside a march that began before you were born and won't end when you die. Then a shadow falls over both of you. Revan. He doesn't announce himself. He doesn't have to. The temperature of the fight changes like a front moving in. Pressure, current, inevitability. His blade ignites with a sound you feel in your teeth. The captain adjusts, good enough to try to account for two. It isn't enough. Revan opens him in 3 strokes that look like one, and the captain folds slowly, like he's bowing to a king he refused to acknowledge. Hold the line, Revan says, not to you specifically and exactly to you. His mask catches the firelight. You cannot see his eyes, but you can feel them, that same burning certainty that made you step into this war in the first place. You nod because there is nothing else to do. The square breaks open. Mandalorians fall back in good order, because of course they do, and you chase them farther than wisdom says you should, because of course you do. The city's spine is a corridor of smoke and glass. You clear 1 block, then the next, then a third you'll never remember. Somewhere behind you the guns are quieter. Somewhere ahead of you someone is screaming into a comm for medics that don't exist. You stop when your legs stop. You drop to a step that used to be the entrance to a bakery. The smell is still there under the scorch, sweet and yeasty and wrong. Your hands hum from the saber's vibration. When you switch it off, the silence it leaves is too big. You look down. Your robe is not your robe anymore. It is a record. Soot, ash, burns, scuffs, the brown-black freckles of someone else's life now part of your fabric. Your arms shake. You tell them to stop. They don't. Your stomach climbs your throat. You swallow hard and it tastes like batteries. Across the street, a girl stares at you from a doorway whose door is gone. She is all elbows and dust and eyes too large for her face. She holds a metal cup in both hands like it's a relic. You raise your palm without thinking. Peace, hello, something soft, and she flinches as if struck. You put your hand down. Behind you, Malak laughs, winded and triumphant, arguing with a captain over casualty ratios like they're numbers and not names. Above you, smoke thins enough to show a strip of sky the color of old bruises. Somewhere out on the flank, the chant starts again. Faint, not finished, never finished. The Republic cannons answer with a slower beat. You listen. You count. You understand something you didn't before. This won't leave you. Not tonight. Not ever. You thought war would be a decision, a switch you flip, a door you walk through. But war is a creature. It bites and it does not let go. You feel its teeth in you now, small, precise, anchored. You close your eyes. You see the captain's fall replaying in perfect clarity. You see Revan's blade, the arc, and the promise inside it. You see the girl flinch. You hear Malak laugh. You hear the chant. You hear your own breath, and it does not sound like yours. When you open your eyes again, the city is a little dimmer, or maybe you are. A runner skids to a halt in front of you, dust pluming around his boots. "Orders!" he barks, handing you a slate slick with grime. "Counterpush on the Western Avenue. Mandalorians dug in along the old rail. Command wants Jedi on point." Of course they do. You stand. Your knees argue. Your will wins. The saber's hilt is warm where your hand left it. It feels warmer now, like it shares your heat, like it remembers. You clip it to your belt, and the weight feels right and wrong at the same time. You take 1 step, then another. You do not look back at the girl. You do not look up at the sky. You follow the runner into the smoke, because the map says there is a next fight, and the war says there is always a next fight, and something in you, something new, something terrible, something honest, whispers that you will never be done. You reach the mouth of the Western Avenue. and the whir siddhas. Inhales, quiet, coiled, waiting. Then the first heavy opens up, and the street becomes a saw. You ignite your saber, the light painting your hands, and in that glow you see what you have become. Not a student, not a messenger, a weapon. And weapons don't go home, they get used. The first thing you notice is the sky. It doesn't shine anymore. It doesn't breathe with light. It is gone, smothered. The stars that once guided you through hyperspace are buried beneath the shadows of warships so massive they blot out constellations. Carriers, dreadnoughts, frigates, each one a blade drawn against the galaxy. Their engines rumble like thunder. Their cannons glow with the heat of worlds already burning. You feel it in your bones, deep, low, like the heartbeat of something unstoppable. The Mandalorian fleets are not just ships. They are a storm, and storms don't stop. When you descend to the surface, the smell hits first. Not the sharp tang of ozone from blaster fire, not even the acrid sting of smoke. No, this is heavier. The smell of burning flesh, of scorched soil turned to glass, of homes reduced to ash so fine it clings to your tongue when you breathe. Cities once vibrant are now skeletons. Towers sag inward, their bones broken. Streets are littered with the remains of barricades that never stood a chance. The wind carries the cries of survivors, but fainter now, fewer, and still, the Mandalorians march. You see them pouring through the streets. Endless lines of armored warriors, step for step, shields interlocked, chants rumbling like drums beneath their helmets. They move with terrifying precision. Not raiders, not scavengers, but an army bound by creed and perfected by ritual. Behind them follow slaves, captives dragged in chains, beaten into silence. Men and women broken down for labor, children torn from families, their eyes hollow as they vanish into the war machine. The Mandalorians do not waste. Every prisoner is a tool. Every life is fuel for conquest. You tighten your grip on your saber, your heart hammering, because you know this truth. If they are not stopped here, they will not stop anywhere. You fight, again and again. Blasters scorch the air around you. Your blade sings, cutting through bolts, slicing through iron. You feel sweat sting your eyes, taste blood in your mouth, hear your own breath ragged inside your helmet. You push, you hold the line, but no matter how many fall, more come. Kill one, and two step forward. Break a line, and another form. Cut through a squad, and the chant never wavers. It grows louder, fiercer, as though every death makes them stronger. And in the quiet moments between battle you begin to see it. Their strategy is not brilliance, not trickery. It is inevitability. They grind you down, they exhaust you, they bury you beneath sheer force of numbers. You start to wonder if even Revan's brilliance can bend this tide. Days blur into nights, nights blur into battles. You no longer remember what peace looks like, what silence feels like. The war has swallowed everything. Sleep is short, haunted by visions of visors glinting in firelight. Food is cold, eaten standing, hand on your saber because you no longer trust safety. Exhaustion becomes your companion. Pride and despair twist together until you cannot tell them apart. You fight because there is no choice. Because war no longer asks you what you want, it simply demands your blood. One night you stand atop the ruins of a city wall, watching the horizon. At first you think you see smoke. Then you realize it is not smoke. It is fleets, rising from the ground like a second sky. Warships hover above the plains, their shadows stretching across the land like claws. Dropships fall in endless waves, scattering soldiers across every outpost, every stronghold, every corner of resistance. It is not a battle, it is an occupation. And you are only one blade in a sea of fire. You hear the cries of the people, not whispers, not rumors, pleas. Families clutching at you as you pass, begging for protection, for hope. Mothers holding children, asking if the Jedi can save them. Fathers kneeling in the mud, swearing allegiance if only you will stop the warriors in iron. And you have no words for them, because deep down, you are no longer sure if you can. The Mandalorians push further into the mid-rim. You fight at Vanquo, at Serrico, at Cathar. Every battle is blood. Every retreat is shame. Every so-called victory feels hollow, because for every world you hold, 3 more fall. The Republic sends fleets, but their admirals are cautious, their supply lines stretched, their morale bleeding into despair. And always, the Mandalorians advance, like an iron tide. Revan rallies you when you falter. His presence cuts through the exhaustion, his strategies sharper than any blade. He turns battles with daring maneuvers, with brilliance that bends the impossible into survival. But even as you follow him, doubt claws at the edges of your mind, because for every world he saves, you see another drowned in fire. For every victory he wins, the tide only pauses, never recedes. You wonder if even he can stop them. You wonder if the galaxy can be saved. One night, after another battle that feels more like survival than triumph, you sit among the ruins of a Republic outpost. The walls are scorched. The air reeks of smoke and blood. The wounded cry out in rows of stretchers, their voices hollow, their eyes glassy. And you hear something beyond the camp. At first, you think it's the wind. Then you realize it's a chant, low, steady, growing louder. The Mandalorians are coming again. You rise to your feet, saber in hand, your body shaking from exhaustion, your spirit clawing for hope. You look to the horizon, and once again, the sky is gone, blotted out by warships, fire glowing beneath them. The tide is not stopped. It will not stop. And as the drums of conquest shake the ground beneath you, you wonder with a dread that feels like betrayal of your own faith. If even Revan falls, what chance do you have? The first thing you hear is laughter. Not the laughter of comfort, not the laughter of relief. This is laughter that cracks like thunder across a battlefield. Deep, fierce, untamed. It doesn't belong here. Not in a war zone littered with smoke, screams, and fire. And yet, it rises above the chaos, a challenge hurled into the storm itself. You turn, and you see him. Malak. He is impossible to miss. Towering over soldiers and Jedi alike, broad-shouldered, his presence heavy as a hammer. His robes are cut short, practical, the fabric already scorched from blaster fire. His jaw is sharp, his grin even sharper. His lightsaber burns in his hand, not with elegance, but with the promise of ruin. And beside him, always beside him, stands Revan. Where Revan is sharp edges and precision, Malak is raw power, barely contained. Where Revan speaks with conviction, Malak roars with fury. Together, they are opposites that somehow form a whole. And for the first time in this war, you feel something you thought was gone. Hope. The Mandalorians surge against your line, chanting, their iron masks gleaming in the firelight. For hours you've fought. For hours you've bled, your body heavy with exhaustion, your spirit breaking. And then Malak charges. He doesn't wait. He doesn't hesitate. He leads. His saber swings wide, brutal, each strike meant not just to kill, but to break the enemy's spirit. He cuts through Beskar with the force of a battering ram, driving warriors back by sheer ferocity. He laughs as he fights, loud, booming, a sound so out of place that it becomes terrifying. You find yourself pulled into his orbit. You follow his steps, your blade catching what he misses, your movements sharpened by his reckless confidence. For a moment, the fear lifts. For a moment, you feel invincible. Together, you carve through the Mandalorian ranks. Their chant falters under the roar of Malak's fury. Their line bends beneath Revan's precision and Malak's strength. The Republic soldiers rally at your back, emboldened by the impossible spectacle unfolding before them. You feel the tide shift, not because of strategy, not because of numbers, but because two men refuse to bend, and you are with them. You are part of it. But then, you see the cracks. Between Malak's laughter, you see rage burning in his eyes. Not conviction, not focus. Rage. Every strike is heavier than it needs to be. Every kill more violent than it should be. He doesn't just disarm, he dismembers. He doesn't just defeat, he destroys. You watch him pin a Mandalorian against the wreckage of a speeder, his saber slicing through armor, then flesh, then bone. The warrior is already dead, but Malak doesn't stop. His roar shakes the battlefield, his saber grinding through the corpse until sparks and blood spray alike. Soldiers cheer, Jedi glance away, and you feel something twist inside you. The battle drags on. Night falls, but the fire makes it brighter than day. You fight beside Malak until your arms are numb, your body screaming. His laughter never stops. Even as blood stains his robes, even as his voice grows hoarse, he keeps laughing, keeps roaring, keeps fighting. And yet, between the strikes, you begin to notice the ghosts. His eyes wander after the battle, lingering on the dead, almost hungry. His grin fades when no one is looking, replaced by something darker. You hear him muttering sometimes, not prayers, not strategy, but curses spat at the Mandalorians with venom enough to poison the air. Malak doesn't fight only to win, he fights because he hates. After the battle, the camp settles into weary silence. The wounded groan, fires crackle, the stench of blood clings to your nostrils. Malak sits among the soldiers, his presence a storm that no one dares approach too closely. He laughs with them, slaps backs, drinks their rations as if the war itself were nothing but a test of endurance he is destined to pass. But when the laughter dies, when the men finally drift into uneasy sleep, you see him alone. His saber rests across his knees, his head is bowed, his hands shake, not with fear, but with something heavier, rage that cannot be put down, hatred that cannot be quenched. You stare too long, and for a moment his eyes lift to yours, and what you see there chills you. Not hope, not fire, something closer to hunger. Still, you follow him into battle again, because beside him, you feel alive. Because beside him, you feel like the Republic still has a chance. Because when Malak roars, the Mandalorians falter, and when Revan leads, the galaxy itself seems to bend. Together, they are unstoppable. Together, they are terrifying, and you are caught between admiration and dread. You close your eyes that night and hear Malak's laughter echoing in the dark. It carries through the battlefield, through your dreams, through your very soul. At first, it sounded like thunder. Now it sounds like a warning, because you know this truth. Heroes inspire, but sometimes they break, and when they break, the galaxy breaks with them. The first thing you feel is the silence, not the silence of meditation, not the quiet hum of the temple where once you knelt in peace. This is a heavy, broken silence. The silence of streets that should be alive with voices, now filled only with the crackle of fire and the settling groan of broken buildings. You step carefully, your boots sinking into ash where streets used to be. The air is thick, choked with smoke that burns your throat and makes every breath feel like swallowing coals. The smell is unmistakable, burned wood, charred stone, and beneath it, the faint copper tang of blood. The war has left its mark here, and you are forced to walk through it. Children huddle in the ruins of a collapsed house, their faces gray with soot, their eyes wide and empty. A woman kneels beside them, clutching them close, her tears carving streaks down her dirt-stained face. She looks up at you as you pass. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Her eyes ask the question you have no answer for. Why weren't you here? Why didn't you stop this? You tighten your grip on your saber hilt, but the weapon feels heavier now, useless. A blade can cut down warriors. It cannot rebuild homes. It cannot resurrect the dead. You turn a corner and see the remains of a marketplace. Stalls that once overflowed with color and sound are now blackened skeletons. Fruit lies crushed into the dirt, half burned, crawling with flies. A body slumps against a shattered pillar, helmet still on, armor scorched. You don't know if he was Mandalorian or Republic. The fire has stripped away allegiance. All that remains is death. The survivors gather in clusters. They whisper. They weep. Some clutch charms or scraps of clothing as if holding on to fragments of their lives might anchor them to reality. Others simply stare into nothing, their minds already broken by what they've seen. You hear the cries. Help us. Where will we go? They took my son. The words pierce you deeper than any blade ever could, and you realize something you have tried not to admit. You are not fighting for the Republic anymore. Not for the Senate that sits in marble towers, deaf to screams. Not even for the council that preaches patience while worlds burn. You fight because the galaxy is bleeding, and you cannot look away. As you move deeper into the ruins, the sound of boots crunching in ash reaches you. You turn, saber half raised, only to find Republic soldiers trudging into the square. Their faces are gaunt, hollow, their armor dented and scorched. They are not heroes here, they are survivors. One of them catches your eye. He nods once, slow, as if to say, "We did what we could, but it was never enough." And you know he's right. The Mandalorians have left their mark on more than buildings. They've taken people. You see chains dragged through the dust, their ends broken. You find clawed marks on walls where prisoners tried to hold on before being pulled away. Slaves, workers, weapons. The Mandalorians do not simply conquer, they consume. and the rim is running out of pieces to give. Later you stand at the edge of a mass grave. The Republic dug it in haste. Dozens, hundreds, piled together, their faces covered by torn cloth, their identities stripped by fire and dirt. The stench makes your stomach twist. Flies gather in clouds. Soldiers work in silence, their shovels clanging against rock, their eyes refusing to meet yours. You want to look away, but you don't. You force yourself to see, because if you don't, then their deaths mean nothing. The days blur into each other. Battle, ruins, battle, ruins. Each world looks different but feels the same. Towers collapse, markets burn, families cry, and you walk among the wreckage, bearing witness. The scars of the rim are carved into your soul as much as the galaxy itself. You begin to understand something else, something darker. You are changing. At first, you fought for justice, for duty, for the Jedi. Now, you fight because you can't stop. Because if you stop, you will drown in the screams of those you failed to save. Because fighting is the only way to silence the guilt, even if only for a moment. One evening, you sit in the ruins of a home. The walls are gone, the roof collapsed, but the hearth still stands, blackened by flame. A child's toy lies half buried in the ash, a wooden starship, its wings broken. You pick it up, brushing off the soot, staring at it until your vision blurs. It doesn't feel like a relic of life, it feels like a gravestone, and in the pit of your stomach you realize you no longer remember what this world looked like before the fire. That night, Revan addresses the camp. He speaks of victory, of strategy, of the future. His voice is calm, sharp, cutting through despair with conviction. Malak stands beside him, roaring encouragement, his laughter booming like thunder across weary soldiers. They give hope to the army, they give purpose, but as you listen, surrounded by the wounded and the broken, you feel a gulf widening inside you. Their words are fire. Yes, but fire does not heal. Fire only burns. You wonder how much more the galaxy can burn before nothing remains. The next morning, you walk again through the ruins. The survivors look at you, not with gratitude but with hollow eyes. Children shrink away. Mothers turn their faces. The air is thick with despair, and for the first time you wonder if your presence means anything at all. While your saber hums at your side, but you do not ignite it, because what good is a weapon in a galaxy that is already ashes? You stop in the middle of the street, staring at the smoke curling into the sky, and in that moment you understand. The war is not just destroying worlds, it is destroying you. The first thing you notice is the smell. It is thick, humid, and alive. The air tastes like wet soil and blood. Every breath feels heavy, as if the jungle itself presses against your lungs, unwilling to let you forget where you are. Dxun, Onderon's moon. Here, the war has dragged you into a place older and crueler than civilization, the Beastlands. The trees rise like black spears into the sky, their twisted roots crawling across the ground like serpents. Vines hang heavy, dripping with moisture that feels more like sweat than rain. The jungle never sleeps. Every rustle is a predator. Every shadow hides something watching, and you realize with a shiver, you are not the hunter here. You are prey. Your boots sink into the mud as you move, every step a struggle against the earth itself. The sounds of blaster fire are distant now, muffled by layers of canopy. But the war hasn't vanished. The Mandalorians are here too. Their camps dot the wilderness like scars. Iron spikes driven into living ground, fire pits blazing, banners flapping in humid wind. Their voices echo through the night, chanting in deep rhythm, blending with the howls of unseen beasts. To them, Dxun is not a nightmare. It is home. They thrive in this chaos, their armor glinting with sweat and blood as they spar even in rest. And for the first time you see them not as invaders, but as predators who belong. The first night nearly kills you. The fire is low, soldiers huddle close, and still the beasts come. You hear the snap of branches before the scream. Something massive tears through the perimeter, eyes glowing in the dark, maw wide enough to swallow a man whole. Blasters flare. Sabers ignite. The air fills with the stench of burning hide and the shrieks of creatures that have ruled this moon long before Jedi or Mandalorian ever set foot here. Even when the beast lies still, its body steaming in the dirt, you cannot sleep, Because the jungle doesn't stop. You hear insects the size of your arm clicking their jaws, wings beating like drums above the canopy, growls that circle your camp, closer every hour. And through it all, you feel the gaze of Mandalorians watching from somewhere unseen. Days blur into weeks. Patrols, ambushes, blood in the mud. Every movement through the jungle is a test. Heat blisters your skin beneath your armor. Leeches cling to you. Your saber hums more for beasts than warriors. You begin to forget which is worse, the jungle or the Mandalorians. But it is here, in this hell, that you see something change. Revan. He moves differently now. At first he fought like a Jedi. Measured, precise, careful. But Dxun devours caution. The enemy doesn't retreat. The beasts don't play fair. And so Revan adapts. You watch him study the Mandalorian war camps, his eyes sharp, his mind turning every detail into a weapon. He sends squads not to meet the enemy head-on, but to strike from the shadows, to set traps in the mud, to lure warriors into the jaws of the very beasts that stalk you. It is not patience, it is not restraint, it is hunger. A hunger to learn, to match the Mandalorians at their own game, to outthink them, outfight them, outkill them, and slowly, it begins to work. You march with him through the jungle one dawn, fog curling like smoke around your feet. A Mandalorian patrol moves ahead, confident in their armor, in their knowledge of this land. Revan stops. He waits. His hand lifts once, and then the jungle moves. A snare hidden in the mud whips upward, dragging one warrior screaming into the air. Another step, and a pitfall swallows two more, their armor clanging as they crash into sharpened stakes. The survivors barely have time to shout before your squad is upon them, sabers igniting in the mist, blaster fire flashing from hidden perches. The battle is over in minutes, not because you fought harder, but because Revan fought smarter. You glance at him, and for a moment you don't see a Jedi. You see something else, a commander forged by the jungle itself. The soldiers whisper of him now, not as a Jedi, as a leader, as a warlord who bends even Dxun to his will. They cheer him, they follow him, they would die for him. Even Malak, towering, laughing, feral, bows to his plans, his fury sharpened into a blast. Aid by Revan's mind. And you feel torn. Pride surges in you when you see Mandalorian banners torn down, when you see prisoners freed, when you see the Republic hold the line for once. But in the pit of your stomach, unease grows. Because every victory feels less like defense and more like conquest. One evening, you return from patrol, mud soaking your boots, your body aching. The jungle hums with life all around you. Shrill cries, heavy footsteps, the never-ending beat of a world that thrives on blood. And you find Revan standing alone at the edge of camp, staring into the darkness. His mask gleams faintly, hiding his face. For a long time he doesn't speak. Then quietly he says, "To win, we must become more than Jedi." The words chill you, because you believe him. That night, the beasts scream louder. The Mandalorian chants echo deeper, and the firelight flickers across your tired eyes. You lie awake, staring into the shadows, wondering if the jungle has changed you too. You came here as a Jedi. But Dxun does not forge Jedi. It forges survivors. And as you close your eyes, you realize, survivors don't choose who they become. The jungle chooses for them. The first thing you hear is silence. Not the silence of despair, not the silence of death. This silence is heavy, waiting, balanced on the edge of a blade. The battlefield lies before you, a valley scarred by trenches, smoke hanging low, the ground torn open by artillery. Mandalorian banners whip in the wind, their skull insignias glaring defiantly across the plain. And yet the air feels wrong, because this time they don't know what's coming. Revan stands at the ridge ahead of you. His mask gleams dully beneath the clouds, hiding his face, but his presence is enough. He lifts his hand once, and the army holds its breath. Soldiers, Jedi, even Malak beside him. Everyone waits. You wait. Then, with a voice steady and sharp, he says only one word. Now. The jungle explodes. From the shadows of the tree line, traps spring to life. Mines detonate beneath the Mandalorian advance, swallowing squads whole. Camouflaged artillery, hidden in the hills, thunders, cutting into their lines from angles they never expected. Republic fighters swoop down from behind, dropping torpedoes in perfect synchrony. The Mandalorians stagger. For the first time in this war you see it, their formation shatter. And then, the Jedi charge. Your saber hums in your hands as you rush forward, the earth trembling beneath the weight of thousands. The clash is deafening. Metal against plasma, war cries against blaster fire, the world itself shaking beneath the fury of two armies colliding. But something is different. This time, you're not holding the line. You're not retreating. You are winning. You fight with new confidence. Every strike feels sharper, every move faster. Not because you've grown stronger, but because the enemy falters. Their rhythm breaks, their confidence cracks. You see it in their eyes behind the T-shaped visors, fear. For the first time, Mandalorians look at you not as prey, not as equals, but as something more, something dangerous. You taste victory, sharp and electric on your tongue. The Republic soldiers cheer as the Mandalorian line collapses. They chant Revan's name, their voices rising over the chaos, a sound you never thought you'd hear again. Hope. Even Malak roars with triumph, cutting through enemies with wild abandon, his laughter booming like thunder across the battlefield. "They're breaking! They're breaking!" he shouts. And for once, it's true. You press forward, your saber cutting, deflecting, striking until your arms burn. The Mandalorians retreat, something you thought you'd never see. The iron tide falters, if only for a moment, and you feel alive. But victory carries its own weight. That night, you sit by the fires of a reclaimed outpost. Soldiers celebrate around you, their voices loud, their relief desperate. They sing, they drink, they weep into each other's shoulders. And at the center of it all, Revan stands silent. He doesn't celebrate. He doesn't cheer. He studies maps and murmurs orders, his masked face tilted toward the flames but never softened by them. Malak laughs beside him, bellowing promises of final victory, but Revan's silence cuts sharper than any roar. You see it then. The line between savior and conqueror is not as wide as you once believed. Days pass, battles come, and Revan wins them all. On Vanquo, he lures Mandalorian fleets into an ambush so precise, the void itself seems to turn against them. At Serrico, he orders Republic forces to strike first, sacrificing a fleet to draw the Mandalorians into range of devastating bombardments. At Cathar, you watch him unleash such fury that the sea itself turns red. The Republic cheers, the Senate sings his praises. Soldiers call him their savior, but you fight beside him. You see what they do not. For every victory, Revan grows colder, his orders more ruthless, his strategies more merciless. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to break the Mandalorians, body, spirit, soul. And sometimes you wonder if he wants the same for the Republic too. You begin to see the cracks forming. A Mandalorian warband surrenders on Dxun, dropping their weapons, falling to their knees. Republic soldiers move to disarm them, but Revan's command is swift and final. No prisoners. Blaster fire fills the air. Their bodies fall into the mud. Soldiers cheer, but your stomach twists. You look at Revan, hoping to see hesitation. You see none. Another time, refugees stumble into camp, pleading for help. Revan listens, then orders the village abandoned. "We cannot waste resources," he says. His voice is calm, his reasoning cold, and when the Mandalorians slaughter those left behind, he doesn't flinch. You wonder if he even cares anymore. Still, you follow, because victory is intoxicating, because every world reclaimed, every Mandalorian banner burned, feels like salvation, because hope, even when laced with fear, is still hope. And yet you cannot shake the shadow. You wonder, what will be left when this war ends? What will be left of him, of Malak, of you? One night you dream. You stand on a battlefield, but it is silent. No soldiers, no blasters, only Revan. His mask gleams in the dark, his saber burning red where it should be blue. He turns to you, and when you meet his gaze, you see nothing behind it. No warmth, no doubt, no humanity, only destiny. You wake in a cold sweat, the echo of his voice lingering in your ears. Not words, just silence, heavy enough to crush you. The next day, Revan leads you into another battle, another ambush, another victory waiting to be claimed. And as you march, you realize something that chills you to the bone. The Mandalorians aren't the only ones who fear him now. You do too. The Republic cheers louder with every victory. They see a savior, a hero, a legend in the making, but you walk beside him, and you know better. The line between savior and conqueror blurs more every day, and as the war turns in your favor, you realize with a shuddering truth, the real danger may not be losing, the real danger may be winning. The first thing you notice is the sound of chains. They rattle faintly in the dark, scraping against stone floors as captured Mandalorians are dragged into the prison hold. The air is thick with the stench of blood and smoke, and the faint metallic tang of Beskar armor still clinging to their bodies. Even beaten, bound, and broken, they don't look afraid. They look defiant. You step closer, torchlight flickering across their iron masks, scratched and dented but never removed. They sit like statues, unbowed, their silence heavier than screams. Republic soldiers mutter curses, some spit in their direction, others simply walk away, unable to endure those blank, unflinching visors staring back. But one prisoner speaks, not loudly, not boastfully, just enough for you to hear. "You cannot break us, because we are already bound." The words hang in the air, strange and unsettling. You ask him what he means, though part of you doesn't want to know. His eyes glint faintly through the T-slit of his helmet, and his voice is low, almost reverent. "Bound to him, to Mandalore, the ultimate, our father, our master, our god." The name strikes you like a blow. You've heard it before, whispered on battlefields, muttered in the heat of combat. But here, in this place, it carries weight, the kind of weight that bends reality around it. Mandalore the ultimate. The prisoner continues, his voice gaining strength with every word, as though chains themselves give him purpose. "You think you are fighting us. You think victory lies in broken lines and shattered fleets, but you are wrong. We are nothing but his will made flesh. His mask is our creed. His breath is our war cry. His shadow is the tide that drowns you. And until his blood spills, this war will never end." Other prisoners nod silently, their heads tilting like worshippers in prayer. The sound of chains grows louder as they shift, unite, and even in captivity. And suddenly you understand, this war isn't about fleets or armies. It isn't even about the Republic. It's about him. You leave the cell, but the words cling to you like smoke. Outside, the war rages. Another planet burns, another city collapses. Mandalorians keep coming, their devotion unbroken. And every time you face them on the battlefield, you see it now. The way they fight with blind fury, not for themselves, not for plunder, but for a single name. Mandalore. You imagine him, a figure larger than life, armor blackened by 1,000 battles, a mask carved in iron and fire, a king of warriors, a god of war, a shadow that looms over every world you step onto. And you realize with cold dread, you have not yet fought the true enemy. Revan gathers you and the others in council. His voice is sharp, decisive, cutting through fatigue and fear. "The Mandalorians are not like us. They do not break when they lose. They do not surrender when cornered. They are bound by creed, by blood, by one man. Mandalore the ultimate. Remove him, and their war ends." His words strike with precision, logical and undeniable. Malak slams his fist into the table, grinning like a predator. "Then we find him. We tear the mask from his face and show the galaxy what happens when Mandalorians bleed." The soldiers cheer. The Jedi remain silent, unease twisting in the air. You say nothing, because deep down, you know it's true. This war will not end in treaties or truces. It will end in blood, his blood. The weeks that follow feel different. The war is no longer a storm without shape. It has a face now, a mask. Every ambush, every skirmish, every battle is a step closer to him. Revan sharpens his strategies, pressing harder, cutting deeper into Mandalorian lines. Malak revels in the momentum, his laughter carrying louder with every victory. And you? You begin to feel the obsession too. Every time you deflect a blaster bolt, every time you cut down another warrior, every time you hear their chants, you think of him, Mandalore. But obsession is a dangerous weight. You start seeing his shadow where it doesn't belong, in the faces of captives, in the smoke curling above burning cities, in your own dreams, where an iron mask looms above you, its eyes empty but unyielding, its voice whispering in a language older than fear. When you wake, you taste iron on your tongue and realize you've bitten through your own lip. One evening, you stand at the edge of a battlefield. The Republic has won another victory. Mandalorian bodies lie scattered across the field, their armor gleaming faintly in the firelight. And yet, even in death, they do not look defeated. Their masks still glare at you, defiant, eternal, and you hear the prisoner's voice again, echoing in your skull. Until his blood spills, your hands tremble, not from fear, from hunger, from the need to see that mask fall. The galaxy bends beneath the Mandalorian war machine, but for the first time, you see a path, not through endless battles, not through attrition, through him, Mandalore the ultimate, the warrior king, the god in iron. The war will never end until his blood stains the ground, and as you stare into the fire, you know with a clarity that burns more fiercely than your saber. One day soon, it will be you who stands before him, and only one of you will walk away. The first thing you hear is the wind. It howls across the empty shore, carrying with it a sound you will never forget. Not waves, not gulls, screams. Faint at first, almost like the echoes of memory, but then stronger, clearer, as if the sea itself remembers what happened here and refuses to let the galaxy forget. You step onto the sands of Cathar, and the ground crunches beneath your boots. Not seashells, not stone, bones. Tiny fragments of lives ground into dust by tide and time. The air stings your throat, salt mixed with smoke, the bitter perfume of death carried endlessly on the breeze. And when you look out, the ocean is not blue, it is red. The massacre was long ago, yet its scars are fresh. The Cathar were a gentle people, a world bound to the sea, their lives woven into the tides. But when the Mandalorians came, there was no mercy. Entire villages dragged to the shore, driven into the waves, cut down as the tide rose crimson. Men, women, children, none spared. You see it even now, the faint outlines of rusted weapons buried in sand, helmets half submerged, staring blindly from the surf. You can almost hear the cries, carried on the wind like ghosts clawing their way into your ears. And you realize with dread, some wounds never heal. Revan kneels in the sand, his gloved hands sift through the grains, lifting a shard of bone as though it were a relic. His mask tilts downward, reflecting the blood-red surf. Around him, soldiers stand silent, their eyes fixed on the horizon, their voices caught in their throats. When he speaks, his voice cuts through the silence. This is what we are fighting. This is who they are. Do you still doubt what must be done? His words are sharp, unyielding. They strike at something inside you, a part still clinging to restraint, to justice. And suddenly, it feels weak, foolish, because how can you argue with the ocean itself, the Mandal? Orion prisoners you captured do not deny it. They boast of it. They call it victory. They call it honor. The Cathar were weak, one says through broken teeth. We gave them the gift of battle. And Revan does not answer. He does not strike. He does not rage. He simply turns away. But you see it in his posture, the stiffness in his shoulders, the quiet fury radiating from him like heat. Something in him has shifted. Something in you has too. That night the camp is uneasy. Soldiers whisper by the fires, their eyes wide, their voices hushed. Some speak of vengeance, others of justice. But in the quiet, the lines blur. Is vengeance not justice? Is justice not vengeance? You sit alone, staring at the red tide glowing faintly under the moonlight, and the question burns in your mind, what are you fighting for? The Republic? The Jedi? Revan? Or simply the dead? The next day, the plan is set. Revan doesn't call it revenge, he doesn't call it punishment, he calls it necessity. The Mandalorians must be made to pay, to bleed, to fear. No mercy, no compromise. And when the battle begins, you understand what he meant. It happens fast. The Republic fleet descends with fire. Bombardments light up the horizon, tearing Mandalorian camps apart before they can react. You charge across the beach with soldiers at your side, the roar of blasters drowning out the wind. Your saber hums, cutting through warriors who scramble to defend themselves. But this isn't battle. This is slaughter. The Mandalorians fight, yes, but they are outnumbered, outflanked, outmatched. For every one that falls, 10 more are crushed under artillery, buried in flame, cut down before they can even raise their rifles. Their chants, once deafening, die in their throats. And Revan shows no hesitation, no restraint. His orders are precise, merciless. He drives the offensive until the beaches run with blood, until the waves crash over bodies that will never rise again. You cut down another Mandalorian, your blade searing through Beskar into flesh. He collapses at your feet, and for the first time, you see something in their visor you've never seen before. Not defiance, not rage, fear. The sight should bring relief. Instead, it twists in your gut, because for a moment, you see yourself reflected in that visor, and you wonder which side of the blade you are truly on. By the time the sun sets, the beach is silent. Smoke curls from shattered camps. The sea laps gently at the shore, carrying with it the bodies of the fallen. The red tide stretches further now, glowing under the dying light. The Republic cheers. Soldiers cry out in victory, raising their rifles, chanting Revan's name. Malak roars with laughter, his voice booming across the battlefield, promising the galaxy that, to Mandalore himself will fall next. But you do not cheer, because all you hear are the screams, carried on the wind, refusing to fade. That night you cannot sleep. Every time you close your eyes, you see the ocean turning red. You hear the cries of the Cathar, not just from the past, but from today. From the Mandalorians driven into the surf, cut down without mercy. You try to tell yourself it was justice, that this was necessary, that the Republic cannot afford compassion in war. But another voice whispers inside you, was this justice, or was this vengeance? And if it was vengeance, then whose? Yours? Revan's? The galaxies, or the dead themselves? You rise before dawn, walking again to the edge of the shore. The water is calm, gentle, reflecting the pale light of the moons above. But to you, it will never be clean again, because you know the truth. Cathar is not just another battlefield. It is a scar that will never fade. And as the waves curl against your boots, you wonder if this war has already taken something from you that you can never reclaim. Not just mercy, not just justice, but your soul. The first thing that hits you is the air. It burns. Not with heat, not with smoke, something stranger. The air on Malachor V scours your lungs like ground glass, leaves a chemical taste in your mouth, etches a thin ache behind your eyes. Every breath feels borrowed. Every step, taxed. The sky is wrong. Low, bruised, dim as if the planet wears a funeral veil. Lightning crawls inside distant clouds but never strikes, trapped in a slow coil that makes your skin prickle. Black stone stretches to the horizon in broken plates, split by canyons so deep the wind forgets how to climb out. The ground trembles in little shivers, as though the world itself remembers pain and won't stop flinching. You know at once, this place is not dead, it's wounded, and it wants you to bleed with it. Your boots crunch on shards of obsidian. They click like teeth. Each sound echoes too long, returning not where it should, but from places you can't see. Cracks, hollows, openings in the rock that swallow light and spit back a whisper that isn't wind. The force moves here but crooked. It doesn't flow, it circles. It loops on itself, churning like water trapped in a whirlpool. When you reach for it, it reaches back, not gentle, not kind, curious, hungry. The touch leaves your fingers numb. This is bad ground, a trooper mutters through a respirator, visor foggy. His voice is small, swallowed by the plane. Feels like a grave. You don't correct him. Graves are for rest. Malachor is a mouth. The landing zone is a rash of floodlights and fluttering tarps, a fragile island in the black. Engineers bolt stabilizers into the stone to quiet the tremors. Scouts throw red markers down, and the markers blink once, twice, then go out, as if the ground refuses to be labeled. In the distance, a string of skiffs carries survey teams toward a ridge that rises like a broken vertebra from the planet's spine. Why? Are here because Revan is here. He stands at the edge of the light, cloak tugged by a wind that smells like metal shavings. The mask gives him no face, only intent. You sense him tasting the currents beneath your feet, mapping the eddies and rips the way a sailor reads tides. When he speaks, his voice is low and even, but the words feel heavier than they should, as if the planet adds weight. Malachor remembers, he says. We will learn why. You want to ask who taught it to remember, but you don't, because he is already walking. The approach to the ridge is a pilgrimage through wreckage that isn't there, shapes at the edge of sight, suggestions pressed into the stone. Here, a long gouge like a keel mark. There, a basin polished to mirror by something vast dragging across it again and again. The tremors steady beneath your feet, a pulse you begin to anticipate. You adjust your step to it without thinking, breathing on the upbeats, bracing on the down. The ridge resolves into architecture as you near. No natural angle cuts so cruel. Columns like femurs, vaults like jaws. An avenue marches between monoliths carved with knotwork that almost makes sense until it doesn't. Lines that lead your eye in loops designed to trap it. The symbol repeats, a triangle devouring a circle, a wound devouring an eye, a temple, a fortress, a machine. The Traeus halls. Soldiers halt at the threshold, instincts older than training, whispering stop. Even Malak eases his pace, laughter gone, jaw tight. You feel the force collecting in the doorway, thick as humidity, coiling like old rope. Revan does not slow. He crosses into shadow and the shadow rises to meet him. You follow, because you always do. Inside, cold, not the kind that bites skin, the kind that bites memory. Breath halos in the beam of your glow rod and breaks into bright dust that falls too fast. The walls sweat slick reflections that don't match your movements, like the stone remembers other people and prefers them. Voices carry oddly, fuzzed by history, made heavy by what they mean to say. Your light touches a relief, and the relief answers. Warriors in jagged armor kneel around a wound in the ground as if it were an altar. In the wound, darkness has weight. The artisans who cut this into stone taught Shadow how to lie flat. Revan's gloved hand passes an inch over the carving. He isn't caressing it. He is measuring it, as if the picture is a problem with a solution hidden inside its lines. What is this place? A private asks. A crucible, Revan says. The word lands in your bones. The deeper halls narrow. Your squad picks its way downstairs that seem to fold back on themselves like the ribs of an animal long dead. Your glow rod finds art in slices, trophies of iconography, myths cast in negative. A figure stands alone over a field of ships. Another bends a planet as if it were a coin. A mask watches from every corner. The whispers grow distinct. They are not language. They are invitation. You're not sure when your breathing began to match them. At a turn you almost miss, Revan stops. You feel it before you see it. Open space pressed tight by closeness. An atrium buried in the heart of the rock, wide enough to swallow a starfighter, ringed by balconies that sit like teeth over you. Ere a pit. The pit doesn't show you a bottom. It shows you yourself, reflected as if in water, but wrong. Taller, thinner, different angle to the jaw. Your face, if you had made other choices. You step back from your own eyes. Malak peers over the edge and grunts. It goes, he says, a long way. Revan kneels, sets a small sensor on the lip. The device whispers, lights blinking in a rhythm that reminds you of a distant engine. He doesn't watch it. His head tilts, slow, as if listening for a voice everyone else denies. When he stands, he is already somewhere else in his mind. The ground holds a current, he says, a pressure, mass gathered where it shouldn't be able to gather. The way he says the words makes them feel dangerous, even before you understand them. We can push against it, if we know where to stand. On what? Malak asks. Revan's mask turns toward the pit. On the wrongness. Days blur. Reconnaissance mapped in chalk and hunger. Tremors logged by hour and heartbeat. Revan's hand sketching arcs and vectors on slates already crowded with geometry. Engineers haul crates whose labels mean nothing to soldiers. Gravimetric, harmonics, field sheath, and everything to Revan. He asks questions no one on your side has asked before. How heavy can a shadow be? What happens when you teach gravity a trick? If a planet remembers, can you make a fleet forget? The answers come in theory, then prototype, then the low animal growl of a device spun up and killed in the same breath because the floor moved wrong. You learn to read the planet's moods by smell. Copper when it's about to shake, dust sour when it's listening. You learn to move in the pauses between tremors, to set your canteen down on the third beat. You learn that at 0300 local the whispers rise as if the pit is telling itself a story. You stop asking what story. You already know how it ends. The Mandalorians arrive like they always do, by lines and by creed, scouts first, then teeth. Their vanguard hits your perimeter with the clatter of Beskar on black stone. The Traeus approaches become killing lanes because Revan made them killing lanes, chokes plotted to the inch, mines buried where the ground forgets to hold on, sniper nests carved into glyphs so old blood can't stain them new. Their chants break oddly in the halls, syllables folding inside out. It shakes them more than they'll admit. You fight. It's close, always close here. The walls bring the enemy into your lap and keep them there. You feel armor through your blade in a way you didn't on other worlds, as if the stone would rather the two of you exchanged names before one stops being a question. Sweat freezes on your skin, then burns. Your lungs complain bitterly, and then stop complaining because complaining costs air. Somewhere in the crush, you realize you are smiling, not joy. Recognition. This is the fight Malachor designed you for, and that thought frightens you worse than any blade. When the charge breaks and the echoes thin, you find Revan at the balcony again, looking down where light refuses to go. His shoulders have a new set to them, settled, like a weight has found the shelf it always wanted. We will call them here, he says. Not plan, not hope, will. And then? You ask. His head turns a fraction. You see yourself faintly in the mask, a small figure with ash on their cheek standing against an idea dressed like a man. Then we close our fist. It's not cruelty in his tone. It's geometry, the clean line of a proof reached, inevitable as sunrise. Something inside you cracks along an old seam. Night, if it is night, drops like a lid. Lamps halo the base in tight circles, little islands in a sea of stone. The pit hums. You feel it in the bones of your face, a resonance too low to count as sound. The engineers whisper to each other in numbers. Malak sleeps sitting up, chin on chest, hands still flexing as if gripping a saber in a dream. Far off, something vast drags itself against rock. The tremor that follows comes in a long wave that makes the lamps sway. You try to meditate. The force answers, thick, viscous, insistently intimate. It shows you threads, from the pit to the sky, from Revan to the ground, from you to the device whose cage still smells like machine oil and hot wire. It shows you the shape of tomorrow. If a hand presses here, here, and here, the shape is ugly. The shape is effective. The shape is victory carved with a chisel that does not ask who it cuts. You break the connection like you've touched a fence. Your breath fogs and vanishes. You find Revan alone on the outer lip, where the plane opens enough to pretend there is horizon. The storm ceiling flickers, contained lightning sketching veins across the bruise-colored sky. For a heartbeat, the mask is a skull. For another heartbeat, it's a star. Does it speak to you? You ask before you can stop yourself. He doesn't answer at once. When he does, the honesty is colder than the wind. It does not speak, he says. It offers. And what do you offer back? He turns to you fully. In the cut of his silhouette against static light, you see the man who called you to war and the thing this world is making from him, overlaid until they fit. An end. The words land like a stone dropped into the pit. You don't hear them hit bottom. At dawn that isn't dawn, the engineers lock the last couplings. The cage hums at a pitch that threads your teeth. Revan's orders walk through the camp in other people's mouths. Scouts talk of Mandalorian banners massing beyond the basalt hills, more than you've ever seen in one place, drawn like iron filings to a magnet you planted. The ground's shiver evens into rhythm, a metronome for catastrophe. You look from the device to the pit, from the pit to Revan, from Revan to your own hands. They're steady, too steady, as if the planet has already decided to hold them for you. You close your fingers around the saber hilt and find no comfort there. The wind lifts. It smells like rain that will never fall. Somewhere far below, Malachor turns in its sleep, and you understand, suddenly, completely, that the next move will break something you cannot fix. The world, the enemy, the order, yourself, maybe all of them. Revan raises his hand. The planet listens, and the galaxy tilts. The first thing you hear is the void screaming. It isn't sound, not truly, it's vibration. A long, deep groan that shudders through metal and bone alike. The air inside your ship tastes of oil and sweat, your breath sour beneath the filter mask. Outside the viewport, Malachor V looms, its cracked surface bleeding smoke into space, gravity wells rippling faintly like water disturbed by an unseen hand. And beyond it, the fleets gather. The Mandalorians, an endless wall of Beskar-plated dreadnoughts, their hulls marked by years of blood and fire. They form ranks across the void, banners painted on metal, as if the stars themselves have been chained into their service. Their war drums are silent, yet you feel the rhythm in your chest. And opposite them, the Republic, ships battered and scarred from years of war. But today their formation is too perfect, too deliberate, because this isn't battle, it's a trap. The command deck hums with tension. Officers murmur, their voices hushed, their eyes fixed on the shadowed figure at the center. Revan. He doesn't pace, he doesn't fidget. He stands perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back, his mask reflecting starlight. You feel his presence like a weight, like gravity itself bends around him. His voice is calm when it finally cuts through the air. Hold. The word is simple, but it thrums with power. Every ship, every soldier, every breath waits on that word, and you feel it too, that impossible conviction, that certainty that everything happening here has already been decided. The first volley ignites the void. Manticore-class warships open fire, turbo lasers slashing across the battlefield, emerald light carving scars into the dark. Republic ships answer, their guns roaring, beams lancing into enemy shields. Fighters scream past in swarms, trails of fire painting the black like falling stars. You grip the railing, your knuckles pale. The ship rocks violently under impact. Sparks cascade from the ceiling. Screams cut through comms as whole wings vanish into bursts of flame. This is not war. This is annihilation. And yet, through the chaos, you hear Revan's voice again. Forward. The fleet pushes. You take your fighter into the fray, your hands shaking as the controls buck against you. The cockpit smells of ozone and burning circuits, the engines thrumming beneath your feet. Around you, the battle is a storm. Missiles shriek, hulls splinter, shields flare and die. A Mandalorian fighter clips your wing. You spin, alarms blaring, vision red with blood as your head smashes against the harness. But instinct guides you. You steady. You counter. Your saber cuts through a cockpit in a flash of light, and the ship bursts apart in silence. There's no time to breathe. Another target locks. Another maneuver pulls the G's into your chest until your ribs scream. You fight, you endure, but the void is eating itself. The trap springs. The mass shadow generator, you feel it before you see it. The gravity shifts wrong, the stars themselves bending like reflections in broken glass. Ships twist off course, their engines screaming as invisible hands drag them downward. Collisions bloom like firestorms, fleets tearing themselves apart as if some vast predator has swallowed them whole. The void screams louder. You glance at Malachor below. The planet groans, its crust splitting, canyons yawning wider. Ash plumes spiral upward, sucked into the sky by the unnatural pull. Whole pieces of the surface shear away, tumbling into orbit before vanishing into gravity's maw. And still, Revan leads you forward. You land on Malachor in the middle of hell. The battlefield is chaos made flesh. The ground trembles constantly, the air hot and metallic, thick with the stench of ash and blood. Mandalorian warriors surge across the shattered plains, their chants ragged but unbroken. Republic soldiers meet them head-on, sabers flashing, rifles spitting fire, screams echoing beneath the roar of collapsing stone. Every breath you take tastes of dust. Every blink fills your eyes with smoke. You feel the heat in your bones, the trembling earth threatening to pull you under. But you keep moving. You fight because stopping means dying. Your saber hums, carving through iron and flesh alike. A Mandalorian's jetpack screams overhead. You deflect the rocket into another squad, the explosion lifting bodies into the air like ragdolls. The ground cracks open beside you, a fissure swallowing soldiers on both sides, their screams vanishing into the abyss. And still, Revan pushes forward. He fights at the front, not behind lines, not sheltered, at the front. His saber burns a path through the Mandalorian ranks, his presence a storm that tears through their will. They hurl themselves at him, 1, 10, 100, but he doesn't falter. Each movement is sharp, inevitable, precise. Beskar shatters, blades fall, warriors die, and with every step, the tide bends. You feel it, his will pressing against the battlefield itself, dragging victory from the jaws of chaos. The Mandalorians, unbreakable for so long, falter beneath his fury. For the first time you see doubt in their eyes. Malak is there too. His laughter carries above the din, raw and terrifying. He cleaves through warriors like a man possessed, his power unmatched, his rage unchecked. He revels in the slaughter, his booming voice rallying soldiers and breaking enemies alike. Beside Revan, he is thunder to lightning. Together, they are unstoppable. Immerse. And you, caught in their wake, feel like a weapon sharpened to a single point. Invincible. But the ground beneath your feet trembles harder. The sky grows darker. The air vibrates with something deeper than war. Malachor is breaking. You pause for a moment, chest heaving, your saber heavy in your grip. Around you the battlefield rages, but your gaze locks on the horizon. Through smoke and fire you see him. A towering figure in iron, mask gleaming, cape tattered by battle. Warriors surround him, their formation unshaken, their chants deafening. He does not falter. He does not retreat. He stands like a god carved from Beskar, unyielding even as the world itself collapses. Mandalore the ultimate. And suddenly, you understand. This was never a battle. This was a stage. The fleets, the trap, the slaughter. All of it was to bring him here. The ground cracks wider, ash billowing into the sky, the air thick with the screams of thousands dying all at once. The void itself feels like it's tearing apart, as if reality cannot hold the weight of what's happening here. Revan steps forward. His mask gleams in the firelight. His saber hums to life with a sound that drowns the chaos. And you feel the galaxy hold its breath, because the trap is sprung. The Mandalorians are here. The Republic is bleeding. Malachor is breaking. And now, at last, Revan will face Mandalore. Only one of them will walk away. The first thing you hear is silence. Not the silence of peace, not the silence of safety, the silence before a storm. The kind that makes the hairs rise on your arms and fills your lungs with air that tastes of iron. The battlefield is chaos everywhere else. Blasters, screams, the groaning of Malachor tearing itself apart. But here, in the broken valley of jagged stone, all sound seems to collapse inward. Soldiers stop, blades lower. Even the wounded hold their breath, because two figures have stepped forward. Revan, Mandalore the ultimate, and the galaxy itself waits to see which one will still be standing. Mandalore towers in his Beskar, a mountain of iron and fire. His mask, jagged, scarred, eternal, stares without emotion. His weapon gleams in the smoke, a massive warhammer, blackened at the edges, each strike promising ruin. Around him, his warriors chant his name, pounding their fists against their armor, a rhythm of devotion. Revan faces him, small by comparison, but no less immovable. His mask hides his eyes. His saber hums with a steady, relentless tone. Beside him, silence. Not because his warriors do not cheer, but because his presence alone drowns every voice. You stand at the edge, lungs burning with dust, heart hammering like war drums. You know instinctively, this is not just a duel, it is judgment. The first clash is thunder. Mandalore charges, his hammer swinging with the weight of an avalanche. The ground cracks beneath the strike, sparks spitting upward as Revan's saber catches the blow. The shockwave knocks soldiers back, rattles your bones, makes your teeth ache. Revan doesn't falter. He pivots, blade arcing, forcing Mandalore to turn with a roar of effort. Beskar meets plasma, sparks searing the air, the smell of scorched metal stinging your nostrils. And then they move, not like men, like storms. Mandalore's strikes are brutal, each swing enough to shatter stone, to flatten a squad in a single blow. Revan's movements are precise, surgical, his saber flashing in quicksilver arcs, redirecting, cutting, probing for weakness. The clash is rhythm. Hammer, saber, roar, silence. Over and over, faster and faster. You can barely follow. Every strike feels personal. When Mandalore slams his hammer into the ground, the shockwave nearly takes your legs out from under you. When Revan counters with a sweeping strike, the heat of his blade brushes your cheek. Around you, soldiers recoil, forming a ring, unwilling to step between gods. Mandalore laughs, deep and booming, his voice carrying above the storm. "You fight well, Jedi, but you are no warrior king." Revan answers with silence, his saber a blur of motion, sparks flying like stars. And you feel it, the shift. Mandalore fights with fury, with pride, with legacy. But Revan fights with something else, purpose. The duel spills across the valley. Stone pillars topple as Mandalore's hammer smashes through them. Revan leaps, spins, strikes, each move calculated, each parry precise. The ground trembles beneath them, the planet itself groaning, as if Malachor cannot bear the weight of this moment. You chase their movements with wide eyes, every nerve alight. Fear courses through you, but so does awe. You realize you are not watching a fight, you are watching history crack open. Then it happens. Revan feints low, his saber catching Mandalore's hammer just off balance. The Mandalorian staggers, a fraction too slow. In that sliver of time, Revan surges forward, saber hissing, striking with precision. Sparks explode as the blade tears through the side of Mandalore's mask. For the first time, you hear him grunt in pain. The chant of his warriors falters. The world seems to lurch, the mask splits. Cracks race across it like veins of lightning. With one final strike, Revan tears it free. The mask falls, and the dream of the Mandalorians falls with it. You see his face. Not a god, not a myth, just a man. Weathered, scarred, eyes burning with pride even as defeat fills them. He stumbles, hammer slipping from his hand, knees hitting the ground with a sound louder than battle. Revan stands over him, saber humming. Mandalore lifts his gaze, voice low but steady. It seems the galaxy is yours, Jedi. The words are not surrender. They are a curse. Revan does not answer. His blade flashes once, clean and final. Mandalore falls. The battlefield collapses into chaos. Mandalorian warriors wail, some charging in fury, others falling to their knees in disbelief. The Republic surges, soldiers screaming in triumph, blasters tearing into enemy lines. The ground quakes harder, as though Malachor itself howls in grief. But you don't hear them. You only hear the silence that follows Revan's strike, the silence of a dream ending, the silence of something darker being born. You look at Revan. He does not raise his blade in triumph. He does not shout victory. He simply stands, the fallen mask at his feet, the red glow of Malachor's sky burning across his armor. His presence feels heavier now, more dangerous, as though in killing Mandalore he has claimed something more than victory, something vast, something unseen. The line between savior and conqueror finally breaks. The Mandalorian dream is shattered, its king fallen. The Republic roars with hope. The war should be ending. But you look at Revan, at the way the shadows cling to him, at the way his silence carries more weight than any speech. And you know, this is not the end. This is the beginning. The galaxy holds its breath again, not for what has died, but for what has just been born. The first thing you feel is pressure, not wind, not heat, pressure, like a fist closing around your lungs from the inside. Your ears pop, your vision pulses at the edges. The air tastes wrong, as if the planet exhaled metal and your mouth forgot how to be human. The ground under your boots hums with a thin, high note you don't hear so much as endure. Malachor is holding its breath, so is the galaxy. You look up. The sky is a lid of ash and lightning, torn by burning contrails and fragments of ships corkscrewing down like meteors. Beyond the clouds, the silhouettes of fleets grind against one another. Mandalorian hulls, Republic hulls, sparks skittering from steel as if the void were a whetstone. Your comm clicks. A voice you know better than your own fills the channel. Calm. Absolute. Stand by. Stand by for what? You already know. You just don't want to. The plane crawls with shapes. Medics stooped over the dying. Troopers bracing shattered barricades, Mandalorians dragging wounded comrades as if defiance alone could outpace gravity. In the distance, Revan stands on broken stone, cloak pressed flat against his legs by a wind that isn't wind, masked face turned toward a horizon that shudders. Someone near you whispers, "Is this it?" Your tongue won't shape a reply. The force here is a whirlpool, and it has you by the ankles. "Execute," says the voice on the comm. One word. The world answers. It begins like a mistake, a misalignment you notice with your body before your eyes catch up. Your balance tilts. Your stomach lurches left while the ground slides right. You step to correct yourself, and there isn't a place to step. The space in front of your boot is there, but somehow farther. Then the sound arrives. It is not thunder, not tearing metal, not any sound a world should make. It's a low, continuous drag. A cathedral door the size of a planet being pulled shut across stone. Layered with a shriek too deep for ears and too high for thought. Your teeth ache, Your bones vibrate. Your name, whatever it was before this war, becomes a thin string stretched to breaking. Above you, ships bend, not turn, bend. Frames warp, hulls crease like paper pressed under a wet thumb. A Mandalorian dreadnought begins to pour. You watch its spine arc as if it remembers a shape from a nightmare, then snap. The halves shearing past each other, pulled toward a point that doesn't exist until the machine says it does. Republic cruisers claw for escape, engines screaming blue, but their vectors kink like frightened animals on a short leash. Fighter wings crumple into glitter, then strings, then nothing at all. The mass shadow generator is awake, and it does not care what you call yourself. The ground splits with surgical precision. Lines bloom across the plain, bright as molten wire, then rip open into gaping canyons that gulp smoke and men alike. You leap, and the leap is wrong. You hang for a heartbeat too long, then slam down hard enough to make your spine ring. A trooper reaches for your arm. His hand misses you by an inch that wasn't an inch until the field decided it was. His shout peels sideways, torn by a gravity seam, the sound dragging like a banner. You ignite your saber because that's what your hands know how to do when knowledge fails. The blade steadies you, a column of certainty in a world deciding to forget itself. You herd the living toward a line of fractured pillars that might be cover, shouting until your throat tears against air that won't carry breath the way it used to. A Mandalorian rushes you, mask cracked, eyes bright with that final, ferocious faith. You meet his strike, slide past his guard, take his blade and his balance in one practiced cut. He falls at your feet and keeps falling, his body skidding toward a crack that wasn't there a heartbeat ago. You catch his wrist. For a moment, his weight is yours. For a moment, you are strong enough to keep a soul from the abyss. Then the field tugs, and he is gone. Orbit collapses into sky. Chunks of ships gouge trenches in the plain, red hot, flensing everything they touch. A Republic corvette kisses the edge of a canyon and folds into it like dough, vanishing in a gout of ash. A Mandalorian carrier disintegrates midair, ejecta fountaining upward in glittering arcs that refuse to obey parabolas. Somewhere close, a tank lifts, hovers indecisively, and then decides. Shoots toward a ridge and nails itself there like a beetle pinned to velvet. Your comm is a chorus of last words. Reactor spike. Can't hold. Forgive me. Tell her. You slap the channel closed because love shouldn't have to die in your ear. You run. Not toward safety. There isn't any. Toward purpose, because movement is the only thing that resists despair. You gather what wounded you can find. A sergeant with both legs, neither working. A Padawan with a broken arm and eyes already hardened into an older person's. A Mandalorian boy who can't be more than 16 with his crest ripped from his helmet and disbelief stuck to his face like blood. Move, you tell them. Breathe, you tell yourself. A gravity seam serrates the ground in front of you. Stones slide uphill. A fountain falls sideways and keeps falling. The Padawan stumbles. You throw your hand out. The force grabs, and even here, even now, it answers. The world is crooked, but the current is still a current. You drag the boy's trajectory toward yours, slam bodies behind a shattered buttress, and count heads until numbers feel like prayer. The prayer doesn't help, but counting keeps you human. Somewhere above the ash, someone is still giving orders. Revan's voice cuts through the roar now and then, never raised, never hurried. Reform at Beacon 3. Hold the trench beyond the southern fault. Medical to my marker. The words are island lights in storm-black water, points to swim for. Men do. Jedi do. Immerse. Mandalorians do too, because even they are starting to understand that this is not a battle anyone can win. This is a switch, and someone flipped it. You catch a glimpse of him through the haze for a heartbeat. The mask, the stance, the hand upraised as if he is steadying a thread only he can see. The planet judders, obeys. You feel pride twist through terror, pride in the man who saw the trap through to its end. Then the pride goes gray in your mouth because ends have edges and you're being cut on them. A ridge collapses. The fault line that eats it yawns wider, and for an obscene instant you can see Malachor's innards. Strata torn like muscle, black glass veining red. A glow below that's not light but temperature. The heat kisses your face and tastes like a forge. The wind that follows is in and down. Hurricane force in the wrong direction, dragging dust, cloth, the edges of your thoughts toward a point you know is nowhere. Men who were anchored aren't. You throw everything you are into a shove. The force surges, your bones sang. It learned the song of this place 2 chapters ago. and you pin a squad to the world for 3 breaths that cost 3 years. Your vision tunnels, your heart forgets how to pace itself. Something delicate in your ear pops. The wind relents. You sag, stand again, keep moving. It lasts minutes, or an hour, or the part of your life that used to be a person you recognize. When the generator finally chokes on the magnitude of its own sin, the sound doesn't stop so much as uncouple. The drag loosens, the shriek unwinds into a ringing that will live in your skull forever. The ground continues to twitch, the air continues to shimmer, but the wrongness steps back half a step, as if it has done what it came to do and no longer cares about you. Silence edges in, not peace. The dangerous silence after impact. You open your eyes and find a different map. Where the plane was is a geometry you don't have names for. Terraces torn into arcs, canyons braided like ropes, slabs of vitrified stone reflecting a sky that's learned how to bruise. Where the fleets were is a belt of wreckage orbiting too low, a new ring for a world that didn't ask for jewelry. Flames burn in shapes that flame shouldn't know. Ash falls in soft, steady sheets like the galaxy trying to cover its own eyes. Your cheeks are wet. You don't remember crying. You walk. You call out. You listen. You count. You dig with your hands when the sabers overheat. You make tourniquets from flags. You hold a man's hand while he dies because his wife is 5 systems away, and the last thing he should see is a human face. At some point you realize you are speaking to the dead. Promises, apologies, names. The air steals them, but you say them anyway because grief is a ritual, and rituals keep you upright. A Mandalorian woman crawls from a pocket of not quite gravity and coughs blood onto your boots. You kneel. She laughs, a terrible small sound, and rasps, "We were worthy opponents, Jedi." You answer honestly, "Yes." Her fingers tighten on your wrist. Then, "Do not lie about us to the children." You squeeze back, "I won't." She dies. You close her eyes because the sky refuses to. Night, if night can be measured on a world that forgot how to spin, arrives like an ache. Fires spot the horizon. The ring of wreckage sheds bright crumbs. Medics set up triage beneath a spine of rock that looks like it belongs inside a god. You help where you can and fail where you must. The numbers grow teeth. At last you fold beside a slab of glass where once there was soil. Your reflection looks like someone who survived something they shouldn't have. The Padawan sleeps with their head on your thigh, their fingers ill closing around an invisible hilt. Your hands won't stop trembling. The tremor isn't Malachor's anymore. It's yours. Revan passes close enough that the heat of him brushes your cheek. He stops. The mask looks down at the sleeping child. Then at you. You wait for the words that will make this arithmetic balance. Strategy, necessity, victory. He offers none. "Rest," he says. You hear the second sentence. He doesn't speak. "We won." You nod because your neck remembers how. He moves on, a dark star with its own gravity. When sleep comes, it is not sleep. It is an ambush. You see ships folding again and again, whole crews reduced to red threads pulled through the eye of a needle. You see faces, Republic, Mandalorian, Jedi, blur into one color that stains your hands. The Force tries to soothe you and can't. The planet whispers and you understand too much of it. You wake with your heart already sprinting and the taste of pennies on your tongue. The wind has died. The ash still falls. The comms crackle with a sentence so simple it should be harmless. Hostilities ceased. The war is over. You stare at the ruined horizon until your eyes blur, and still it does not look like peace. It looks like after. Morning finds you on a ridge that didn't exist yesterday, watching medevac shuttles lift from a world that shouldn't either. The ring of wreckage catches sunlight and becomes briefly beautiful, like a crown on a corpse. Somewhere far below, the generator sleeps again, teeth wet, satisfied. You inventory yourself the way you inventoried the wounded. Breath? Yes. Body? Mostly. Faith? You search the space where it used to live and find a different shape. Not the clean edge of justice, not the bright burn of vengeance. A scar. You touch it and it doesn't hurt. It remembers. They will call this victory. You will nod when they do. But when the celebrations come, you will hear what you heard today. The sound a world makes when its spine breaks, the sound a soul makes when it holds the lever anyway, and you will understand why peace already feels like a lie, because the only thing that ended here was noise, and the quiet that follows has teeth. The first thing you notice is the quiet. After years of war drums, blaster fire, and the endless roar of dying worlds, the silence of Coruscant is suffocating. The air smells too clean, like rain washed the city too many times. The streets gleam beneath the towers, unscarred, untouched. Ships drift in orderly patterns above, shining like insects in perfect flight. You walk through it like a ghost, armor scorched, robes frayed, boots still caked in Malachor's ash. People turn their heads to look, but not with awe, not with gratitude. Their eyes skim over you with unease, as if they know you carry something with you that doesn't belong here. And maybe they're right, because for the first time, you feel like a stranger in your own home. The Jedi Temple rises ahead, massive and serene. Its towers stretch toward the heavens like fingers reaching for light. You should feel comfort here, sanctuary. Instead, you feel dread. The steps echo too loudly beneath your boots. The doors hiss open with ceremonial weight, and the familiar scent of stone, incense, and polished floors makes your stomach twist. The temple hasn't changed, but you have. And the force here feels thinner, colder, distant. The council chamber waits. You kneel, just as you once did as a Padawan, but everything feels wrong. The floor is too smooth, the air too still, the circle of masters too heavy with silence. Their gazes cut into you like blades, not with anger, not with kindness, but with judgment. You have returned, one master says, voice low, unreadable. Another adds, but what have you brought with you? They don't ask about the war. They don't ask about the dead. They don't ask about the nights you held men as they bled out, or the children you carried from burning cities, or the friends you left in graves you never had time to dig. They ask about you. And the truth is, you don't know the answer. You tell them of victory, of Revan's brilliance, of the Republic's survival, of the Mandalorian dream crushed beneath Malachor's shattered crust. You recite the facts because facts are clean. Facts are safe, but their eyes narrow. Victory bought with darkness. One whispers. Revan walks a dangerous path. Another warns. And you followed. The words sting worse than blaster fire, because they are true. You feel the weight of the silence that follows, heavier than the war itself. Not a word of thanks, not a word of acknowledgement for the lives saved. Only suspicion, only doubt. You return as a soldier. They see only a shadow. Later you walk the halls of the temple. Students train in the courtyards, their sabers humming bright and eager. Masters pass, serene, robes unmarked by ash. The air hums with the tranquil rhythm of meditation, unbroken, untouched by war. You should feel pride, but instead, you feel distance. They live in a world that no longer feels real, a world untouched by Malachor's scream. A world where oceans never turned red, where gravity never bent itself into weapons, where names of the dead don't line your memory like scars. You hear laughter in the gardens, the kind of laughter that once belonged to you, but it doesn't anymore, because you are not the same, and they will never understand what you've become. At night, sleep refuses you. You lie in your quarters, soft bedding, polished walls, the hum of repulsor lifts outside. And you hear the war instead, the hiss of jetpacks, the clash of Beskar against Saber, the endless chanting of Mandalorian war cries, the silence of Cathar's ocean, forever red. You hear the world break again and again. Malachor screams in your dreams, tearing fleets apart, dragging your soul with it. You wake gasping, drenched in sweat, the sheets tangled around you like restraints, and you realize you felt more at home in war than you do here. Whispers spread. Students step aside when you pass. Knights avoid your gaze. Even some masters look at you too long, as though searching for cracks in your soul. They call you survivor, hero, weapon, tainted, but never Jedi. Not anymore. One day you see Revan in the halls. He doesn't kneel before the council anymore. He doesn't lower his head in deference. He walks like a commander still, his mask absent but his aura unchanged, sharp, burning, undeniable. His eyes meet yours, and for a moment you feel steady again. He understands. He carries the same scars, the same weight, the same silence. You don't need words. The war lives in both of you, but even in that recognition, you see something else. Revan has already moved on, already searching for new paths, new enemies, new answers. His shadow stretches ahead, and you know you will either follow it or be lost in it. The council warns you again. Revan is dangerous. Revan is consumed. You must distance yourself from him. But their words feel hollow. They didn't fight at Dxun. They didn't walk Cathar's shores. They didn't stand on Malachor when the world screamed. They hid, and now they judge. You look into their eyes and realize you are already halfway gone. You step out onto the balcony of the temple, the city stretching before you like an endless ocean of light. The wind carries the hum of speeders, the distant murmur of millions who never saw the war, never smelled the ash, never counted the dead. You close your eyes, and for a moment you pretend you belong again. Pretend that the temple is still your home. Pretend you are still Jedi, but the silence that fills you says otherwise. You came home, but home feels like exile, and deep down you know the truth. You no longer belong. The first thing you feel is the emptiness, not peace, not calm, emptiness. The war is over, yet the air of Coruscant feels too light, too thin, as if the galaxy itself is holding its breath, waiting for something it doesn't want to name. Streets bustle with life again, towers gleam in the sun, but none of it feels real to you. Not after what you've seen, not after what you've done. You thought victory would bring relief. Instead, it brings silence. Silence that feels like a lie. And somewhere in that silence, you hear his name, Revan. It whispers through the temple halls. It echoes in the Senate chambers. It crawls in the corners of war camps that should be disbanded by now. Soldiers chant it still, but softer, almost reverently. Some Jedi speak it with pride, others with fear, but all of them speak it. Revan, the savior of the Republic. Revan, the butcher of Malachor. Revan, the name that ended a war, and already he is gone. At first it seems like rumor. Reports that he left the core. Whispers that he marches beyond the rim, beyond maps, beyond reason. Malak at his side, his laughter booming into unknown skies. A few Jedi follow, cloaked in silence, their ships vanishing into the void. When you ask the council, they deflect. Revan is no longer your concern. When you ask soldiers, they smile faintly. Revan is still fighting for us. When you ask yourself, you don't know the answer, but you feel it, the chill of betrayal, because wars don't end. They only change faces, and Revan has already put on a new mask. You dream of him. He stands at the edge of the galaxy, cloak torn by a wind that isn't there. His mask gleams, but it is different now. Darker, sharper, carved from something that doesn't reflect light but swallows it. Malak looms at his side, teeth bared in savage joy. Behind them, ships burn with symbols you don't recognize, banners stitched with stars that dawn to belong to any Republic world. When you call his name, he doesn't answer. When you step closer, he turns his mask, and you feel not recognition, but distance. The dream ends with silence but not peace, a silence that feels like chains. The temple grows colder. Jedi who once fought at your side vanish. Some resign their posts quietly, slipping away like shadows. Others are reported missing, their last known locations always somewhere near the outer rim. The archives whisper with their names, erased as quickly as they vanish. The council calls it desertion. The soldiers call it loyalty. You call it something else, gravity. Because Revan has become more than a man. He has become a pull, a force unto himself, and you feel it tugging at you too. One night, you stand in the archives. The glow of holocrons lights your face in pale gold. You search for something, answers, reasons, warnings, anything. Instead you find fragments, accounts of wars older than this one, of Sith who vanished beyond the rim and returned changed, a trail of shadows stretching back through centuries, each one wearing a different name, each one leaving ruin in its wake. And you realize what terrifies you most. Revan is not the first, but he may be the last. The Senate debates endlessly. They praise Revan one moment, condemn him the next. They argue over rebuilding fleets, over disarming soldiers, over reparations and laws. Their words are polished, hollow, detached, and through it all, the galaxy bleeds quietly in corners they refuse to see. Worlds scorched by war sit forgotten. Refugees starve in streets while senators sip wine. Families wait for answers that never come. The council sits in silence, meditating while history turns its wheel. And you feel the turning in your bones, because you've seen this before. The hesitation, the blindness, the refusal to act. It was the same silence that let the Mandalorians rise, and Revan has no patience for silence. The rumors grow sharper, ships sighted on unmarked routes, fleets gathering in systems the Republic no longer dares to map, Jedi seen fighting, but not for the Republic, not for the Council, for him. And then, one night, you see it for yourself. A Republic freighter limps into port, half its hull torn open. Survivors stagger out, trembling, hollow-eyed. You kneel beside one, pressing water to cracked lips, and hear the words whispered like a confession. They wore masks, Jedi masks, but not Jedi. They said they were his. The words curdle in your stomach, because you know who his means. You wander the temple halls in restless silence, your steps echoing against marble that suddenly feels foreign. Once, you believed these walls would always be home. Now they feel like a cage, and then you hear him, not in person, not in dream, in memory. Revan's voice, sharp and commanding, cutting through hesitation like fire through smoke. To win, we must become more than Jedi. At the time, you thought it was strategy. Now, you wonder if it was prophecy. One dawn, you step onto the balcony overlooking the endless sea of Coruscant lights. The sun breaks through clouds, painting the city gold, but the warmth doesn't reach you. You close your eyes, listening. The hum of speeders, the distant murmur of millions, the faint pulse of the Force. And beneath it all, deeper, quieter, darker, something else. A current pulling outward, beyond maps, beyond borders, beyond reason. Revan's path. And for the first time you realize you're not just afraid of him, you're afraid of yourself, because part of you wants to follow. The Mandalorian Wars are over, the Republic is saved, the galaxy exhales, but you do not, because in the shadows of victory you see masks forming, masks of iron, masks of truth, masks of betrayal. Revan has already left, Malak at his side, others vanishing into the dark like stars, snuffed one by one. And you know, with a certainty that chills you more than Malachor ever did, the Mandalorian Wars were not the end. They were the beginning. The first thing you notice is the wind. It carries dust across broken stone, whistling through shattered windows of a city that once stood proud. The sound is thin, hollow, like a memory refusing to die. The air tastes of ash long settled, but never forgotten. Years have passed since the war ended, but the ruins still speak. You step across cracked pavement, boots crunching on glass and debris. Buildings stand like skeletons, hollow frames, blackened walls, doorways that lead only to emptiness. Children once played here, families once gathered at markets. Now only silence reigns, punctuated by the moan of wind across ruins. And you realize, some wounds never close. The galaxy calls it history now. The Mandalorian Wars, the victory of the Republic, the rise of Revan. In archives, it's words on holoscreens, neat lines of data, clean records stripped of blood and smell and sound. But here, where the war carved itself into the ground, there is no history. There is only aftermath. You see it in the faces of the survivors, wrinkled with time, hollowed by memory. You hear it in their voices when they whisper names of the dead, not as stories, but as anchors. You feel it in the way they look at you, eyes narrowing, searching for the Jedi who never came when they begged, or for the warrior who brought only fire. To them, you are both. To yourself, you are neither. The whispers of Revan never stop. In the Senate, he is debated endlessly. Hero, traitor, savior, tyrant. To some, he saved the galaxy from Mandalorian conquest. To others, he doomed it to a darker fate. His name is etched into statues, sung in soldiers' songs, cursed in refugee camps. But none of those whispers tell the truth. Not the truth you saw, not the truth you lived, because you know the war never truly ended. It only changed shape. You walk deeper into the ruins. Your hand brushes along a wall marked by bloss. Fire. Fingers tracing charred streaks like scars burned into skin. You remember the smell of it, flesh and stone burning together, indistinguishable. You hear faint echoes of the battle, as if the walls themselves still scream. The clash of Beskar, the hiss of sabers, the roar of jetpacks overhead. For a moment, you are back there, blade in hand, lungs filled with smoke, eyes stinging as fire swallowed the city whole. You close your eyes. The sound fades, but the memory stays. And you wonder, did you win, or did you just survive? At night, you sit beneath the broken spire of what was once a cathedral. Stars pierce the black sky, cold and distant, watching without judgment. Their silence feels heavier than screams. You remember Revan standing beneath stars like these, mask gleaming, voice steady as he spoke of destiny. You remember Malak's laughter, thunder across the battlefield. You remember the Council's silence, their judgment sharp and hollow. The galaxy still whispers their names. But the dead? The dead whisper nothing, and that silence is louder than all the rest. You find children among the ruins sometimes. They play in broken streets, their laughter sharp and jarring against the weight of history. They do not know what happened here, they only know what remains. When they ask you who caused this, you cannot answer. Was it Mandalore who led his people to ruin? Was it Revan who led the Republic into the abyss? Was it the Council who did nothing? Or was it you who followed? Every answer feels like a lie. Every silence feels like betrayal. And so you tell them nothing, because you are not sure of the truth anymore. You travel. From world to world, you see the scars. Colonies abandoned, their people scattered. Moons left in ruin, their ecosystems forever broken. Cities where statues of Revan stand in triumph while hunger gnaws at the living. Temples where his name is erased, forbidden, as if silence itself can cleanse the shadow he left behind. But whether praised or cursed, his shadow stretches across every system. Revan does not rule the galaxy, but in many ways, he owns it. One night, you dream. You stand on Malachor again, the ground trembling, the sky screaming as fleets tear themselves apart. You hear the mass shadow generator hum, a song of annihilation. But this time, when you look up, you see not ships, but stars. Thousands, tens of thousands, all bending inward, drawn into a maw of darkness. At the center stands Revan, his mask darker now, sharper, more monstrous. His hand stretches outward, and the stars themselves bend to his will. When you wake, your chest aches, your hands tremble. And the worst part is not fear. The worst part is the part of you that still believes in him. The Council does not speak of him, not openly, not to you. His name is treated like poison, like a wound too deep to prod. They bury his memory under rules, under silence, under endless meditation. But silence cannot erase scars, and the more Tiu says, "Hey, try to forget," the more the galaxy remembers. You return to the ruins where it all began. A battlefield, long abandoned, now silent except for the wind. The skeletons of ships jut from the earth like broken teeth. Craters yawn wide, filled with stagnant water. The soil still stinks faintly of smoke when the rain falls. You kneel among the wreckage, the weight of years pressing down. You remember every choice, every scream, every name. You remember the Council's judgment, the Senate's arguments, the soldiers' cheers, the Mandalorians' chants, and you realize none of it matters anymore. Because the war never truly ended, it only waits. You stand among the ruins, the stars watching from above, their silence colder than any battlefield. You listen to the wind, to the whispers of survivors, to the echoes of the past that will never fade. The galaxy calls Revan many things: hero, traitor, savior, tyrant. But you know better. You saw him, you followed him, you felt the pull of his shadow, and deep down, you know the truth. The Mandalorian Wars were not the end. They were only the first chapter. The scars remain, the whispers grow, the shadows deepen, and as you stare at the stars, you wonder with dread and certainty, what comes next?